Few remember the story of a distant time when peace on earth was suddenly destroyed. A king of men discovered a strange gate, and curiosity led him to open it. From that opening poured creatures from a different world, creatures of horror that belonged to the realm of demons. The once calm land was consumed in fear and destruction. Endless waves of monsters rushed into the human world, spreading terror. Blood soaked the land as countless lives ended, and despair covered everything. In desperation, the king pleaded to the gods for help. A bright light answered, descending from above, and that brilliance destroyed the monsters, turning them into smoke that vanished into the air. At that moment, humans gained a gift. Certain ones carried a special mark, and with it came the mysterious strength to resist the creatures. Those gifted individuals became known as mages, and they were celebrated as protectors. With their aid, the world found peace again. Yet a troubling question remained. No one knew if the gods had truly answered or if another power had intervened. Sometime later, in the ruins of a crumbling castle, a man wearing knightly armor discovered a young boy among the remains of fallen monsters. The boy carried a gaze that held more calmness and wisdom than expected of his age, and in that moment, the knight feels he has found the answer to the old question. In present, the night sky is glowing with the soft light of 2 moons, and several carriages are standing outside a grand ballroom. Inside, the atmosphere is filled with music, chatter, and the shallow laughter of nobles who enjoy themselves without care. A golden-haired woman named Siren descends the staircase with irritation on her face. She remembers her maid telling her that mages would be at this ball, yet she sees only arrogant nobles surrounding her. She regrets attending, feeling deceived by false promises. The maid nervously urges her to lower her voice, but Siren remains focused on the black mage, the one her maid mentioned earlier. She cannot hide her disappointment that he has not appeared. The maid tries to calm her, saying there will be other opportunities to meet him. Siren, however, feels no comfort in such words. She insists she will only sing 1 song before leaving. The maid then mentions troubling news. She whispers that a carriage traveling through Lupin Forest was recently attacked by monsters. Even with such danger so close, the nobles celebrate shamelessly as though nothing is wrong. Siren sighs in frustration. She wants nothing more than to meet the Black Mage, a figure of both fame and mystery. When Siren steps onto the stage, the room falls silent. Eyes widen as many guests cannot believe the angelic singer stands before them. Rumors of her voice fill the hall, and now everyone is waiting to hear if those stories are true. Yet before she begins her song, Siren notices something strange. The crowd looks terrified, but not because of her, but their eyes are fixed beyond the ballroom windows. There are dark lizard-like monsters outside. Panic rushes through the guests. Shouts echo as nobles run toward the exits. Siren turns and sees enormous creatures breaking through the glass behind her. Red eyes glare through the hall. She freezes, unable to move, realizing the beasts are advancing directly toward her. Just before she is seized, her name is called from nearby. A man with a spear appears out of nowhere and charges forward. He attacks the lizard-like monsters with his spear, which is wrapped in dark energy. The powerful blows cut through the monsters and drive them back. Siren stares in shock, watching his every move as he fights. The creatures hesitate before his overwhelming strength. Outside, more monsters climb the walls, but with one powerful surge of energy, the man destroys them all. Siren falls to her knees, shaken by what she has witnessed. The maid hurries to help her and asks if she is safe. Siren barely listens as her attention fixed on the man who saved her. She realizes with certainty that this must be the Black Mage from Awakens, the legendary figure whispered about by many. Outside, the man stands bathed in moonlight over the corpse of a monster. He then turns his deep blue eyes toward the hall. The maid urges Siren to flee, but she refuses, desperate to see the Black Mage. The singer's words spread quickly through the hall. People murmur in shock, recognizing the name. Could it truly be that the Black Mage of Awakens stands before them? Just then, the man enters through the shattered window, his dark robe moving in rhythm with his steps. Siren trembles as he approaches, yet his presence is calm. He asks gently if she is hurt. Siren manages to answer that she is fine, and the man shows relief. To her surprise, he apologizes for making a request in such a dangerous moment. Placing a hand on his chest, he asks if she might do him a favor. Siren clenches her fists and declares she would do anything for him. The man reaches into his coat and reveals a piece of paper and a pen. His request is simple. He wishes for her autograph. The hall falls silent in disbelief. Siren can hardly believe what she hears. Did the Black Mage truly want such a thing? She repeats his words, and he confirms without hesitation. Seren, still stunned, asks for his name before giving him what he seeks. The next day, the Black Mage returns to the city. People quickly notice him moving through the corridors. His dark hooded clothes make him stand out in the crowd, and whispers spread among those who see him. Some wonder if he has just returned from a mission, while others express a desire to approach and speak with him. The constant attention reminds him why he dislikes crowded places. He reflects that his clothes are chosen not for style, but as a shield, a way to hide from the eyes that follow him everywhere. Moving through the gathering, he suddenly hears a familiar voice calling out. A young woman with short hair, carrying a heavy stack of papers, waves in his direction and addresses him as Blow. She seems surprised to see him enter through the main gate at such a time of day. Still, she guesses that his visit must have a purpose. She suggests to herself that he must be heading to meet their master to report about a mission. Blow confirms her guess and admits that he is here to report the mission. He adds that it had been a depressing one. The girl cannot help but laugh lightly, proud of predicting the truth so easily. He, in turn, asks about the stack of papers she carries. She avoids details, claiming they are nothing but paperwork. Before long, they agree to meet later for a meal to talk more freely, then part ways. Yet as she leaves, one sheet slips from her hands. Blow notices instantly, bending to retrieve it. To his surprise, the paper carries an image of himself holding a red rose, paired with a bold headline. It announces services under the name of Ophion, promising to fulfill any request for inquiries and encouraging contact. Shock rushes through him as he realizes the nature of the paper. The girl panics at his discovery, dropping the rest of her stack. Desperate, she tries to explain that she had always opposed the idea, but she knows she has revealed too much. Before she can explain further, Blow vanishes. Meanwhile, a young man is sipping coffee in his office while enjoying the pleasant weather from the window, but his peaceful morning shatters as Blow kicks the door open. Startled, the man turns just in time to be struck in the face with the same piece of paper. Peeling it away, he sees Blow standing before him, seething with anger. The man greets him with false innocence, pretending to wonder if someone had mistreated him on the way. Blow erupts in fury, shouting that the one who mistreated him was none other than the master himself. The evidence lies in the ridiculous poster. The man studies the sheet only briefly before silently tossing it out of the window, smiling as though it never existed. Blow grows more irritated. He explains that wherever he goes, people crowd around him, and chaos follows. The master only adds to the problem by promoting him without permission. Ignoring his frustration, the man teases that the great superstar of Ophion seems rather shy. Blow slams his hand down on the desk, forcing him to look at another paper. And when the master examines it, he realizes it is the autograph of Seren, the singer. The mage warns him sternly that this will be the last foolish mission he ever agreed to. The master, saddened by his words, sighs and reveals a new stack of requests. He points out that many simple missions remain undone, such as rescuing a lost puppy for Miss Ellen or delivering the love letter of Ron. All of these tasks, he insists, await Blow. Blow refuses immediately. The master tries to remind him that he has always managed to complete his assignments, even those that seemed impossible, such as convincing Seren to write an autograph as she has a bad reputation of not talking to strangers. Blow disagrees. He insists that Seren was not difficult at all. She had been trembling from the monster invasion. This revelation startles the master. Seren, he thought, had been in Ravi, a safe zone under the protection of the tower. Blow shatters that illusion by explaining that monsters appeared there, medium in size and not very powerful, yet alarming because such creatures should never cross into Ravi. For them to emerge in a protected zone is deeply troubling. Hearing this, the master grows serious. He admits the situation is indeed strange and promises to conduct investigations in the future. Despite this, he once again praises Blow for securing Seren's autograph and jokes about his star-like fame. Blow glares, irritated at being reminded of such a mission. Then, the master suddenly asks how long Blow intends to remain in his current form. He calls him Rude, his true name. Blow stiffens at the mention, but explains that his form is necessary to continue receiving missions. Just then, a swirl of black mist rises around him as he releases the magic disguise. The energy expands, and the master's eyes widen as he beholds the young man standing before him, the one he once found in the ruins of a destroyed castle. The master stares curiously, asking if Rude has grown taller since their last meeting. Rude avoids the remark and demands something real instead. He bangs the desk again, ordering a serious mission as payment for bringing the autograph. Yet the master only smiles in silence. Rude insists once more, and this time the master's expression changes. He warns that circumstances are no longer the same. Since the events of that night, not only ordinary people but also mages are watching Rude closely. The association itself has begun searching for him, and danger will follow wherever he goes. The days ahead will not be simple. Rude brushes aside the warning by shoving the poster in his face again, telling him yet he made this. He asks one more time if there is a mission or not. After thinking for a moment, the master reveals something significant. A grand auction occurs only 3 times each year, specializing in rare and unique treasures. This time, one of the items up for bidding is a magical stone. The mere mention of such a stone catches Rude's attention, for he knows its value. The master explains that other mages also know about the stone, and this will make the mission extremely dangerous. Yet his smile carries excitement, as he tells Rude that this may become quite entertaining. Later, after Rude departs, the master sorts through his remaining stack of documents. Among them rests an item he did not deliver to Rude. In his hand lies an admission letter for Helios Magical School, a paper that would have irritated the young mage more than any autograph request. The night of the auction arrives, cloudless and bright, drawing people from many walks of life. Nobles, merchants, and mages all gather inside the grand hall. In the center stands a gigantic statue surrounded by guards who patrol steadily to ensure order. A man in a blue suit finally steps forward, bows with grace, and announces that the long-awaited auction has officially begun. With his words, the crowd begins to move through the hall, observing items displayed for viewing. Ren sighs as she looks over the pieces. The sheer number of attendees makes her realize the importance of the magical stone called the Heart of Shazan. Its rarity has drawn this immense crowd. Beside her, Rude explains calmly that stones of such quality are hardly seen anymore, making this event extraordinary. From her higher vantage point, Ren notes the heavy presence of mages in the crowd. Concern shows in her voice when she asks if Rude is comfortable with this situation. He assures her that everything will be fine. Quietly, he adds that his goals are different from those of the other mages. Ren, left uncertain by his vague words, wonders silently what he means. Rude recalls his earlier conversation with the master who had given him this mission. That day in the office, he had asked what exactly the task was. The master explained that he must find a certain person appearing at the auction and carry out revenge on behalf of a client. This client's life had been ruined by this mage, and what he desired most was retribution. According to the master, the target resembled villains from old tales, men who exploited weaknesses without mercy. He had many victims and yet always slipped free of punishment. Classified as a third-class mage, he posed no easy challenge, which was exactly why Rude had been chosen for this task. Rude, suspicious of the details, asked if he wants him to kill that mage. The master dismissed that thought, saying they cannot just kill scoundrels like that. And with so many eyes drawn to the magical stone, there would be countless guests and observers present at the auction. Rude has to find the target first, and after that he will have to hold on to him and take his pants off. Shocked by such instructions, Rude tore the mission paper in frustration, unable to understand how revenge could require something so ridiculous. The master explained the logic. Long ago, a criminal organization named Coatl spread fear and destruction, though they had been declared eradicated. Yet whispers remained that some had survived. The group was infamous in Rodin, the very city where the auction was held, and the hatred against them ran deep. Members of Coatl carried a tradition of marking their legs with emblems using the venom of a lemon snake. This mark could never be erased. By stripping the wizard's pants, the mark would be exposed before everyone. The master concluded by asking if this would not be the most fitting revenge. Rude asks what if the return of Coatl was just a rumor, and what if there is no mark on that mage once he removed his pants? The master argued that even then, it would be satisfying revenge. Rude initially wanted to reject the mission, but after the master pleaded, he reluctantly accepted. Now in the auction hall, Ren is still worried about the plan. She quietly asks if it is truly safe, but Rude only says that time will give the answer. In another section of the hall, a young princess leans eagerly over the railing to watch the crowd. Her butler, calm but firm, pulls her back into her seat, warning her not to play around. Yet the princess cannot contain her excitement until her attention is drawn elsewhere. She notices Lady Tessiana entering the hall. Unlike the lively princess, Lady Tessiana is uninterested in the spectacle. She leans against the wall and falls asleep while standing. Nearby, a young royal named Lapis is sitting beside his father. The father instructs Lapis to keep his head raised and watch carefully. The gathering of so many wizards makes the occasion worthy of attention. Lapis obeys reluctantly. In another corner of the hall, a man with animal ears is watching his companion named Shik with irritation. Instead of focusing on their mission to guard the magical stone, Shik is tearing leaves from a branch one by one, repeating words to himself about whether he is coming or not coming. The man with animal ears loses patience and reminds him of the task, but Shik only mocks him by calling him an old man. The tension builds until Shik drops the final leaf, steps onto the pile, and smashes it with a smile. Then he turns, declaring with certainty that he is coming. Back inside, the auction progresses. A necklace is displayed and sold to a wealthy lady. Then, silence falls as the host announces the long-awaited centerpiece. With dramatic words, he reveals the heart of Shazan. The cloth covering is removed, and dazzling brilliance fills the hall. Gasps rise as nobles and mages alike admire its radiance and energy. The host seizes the moment, praising its unmatched power, urging the crowd to see this as a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Ren stares at the stone, filled with awe, and asks Rude if he has already located the target. Rude, also watching, says he sees clearly, though his meaning differs. She misunderstands, thinking he has already identified the person. He clarifies that the energy within the hall is so mixed that it complicates his search. There is even a chance the mage has not appeared yet. Rising from his seat, he leaves Ren behind and slips behind the curtain for privacy. Dark energy swirls as he unleashes his magic. Declaring his name as Blow, he activates his awakening power. From the symbol on his hand, shadows surge and envelop him, reshaping his body. Ren looks in shock as Rude transforms once more into his older form. She stares in disbelief, struggling to accept that how can a little kid turn into such a handsome young man. After Rude transforms into Blow, Ren pushes the curtain aside again and asks about his mana. He assures her he has enough, but warns that something more important is about to happen. Before Ren can ask who he means, the sound of breaking glass echoes through the auction house. From their place at the railing, the two watch chaos unfold. People scream, guards rush into action, and a thin man with green hair steps forward, holding the auctioneer hostage. With him stands a serious partner, a man with a scar across his eye and a weapon in his hand. They declare the priceless mana stone theirs and command everyone to move. Guards immediately surround the intruders, demanding that they drop their weapons. Instead, the green-haired bandit warns them to back away. A crazed smile spreads across his face before he unleashes a wave of energy. The guards are struck by dizziness, their focus slipping, leaving them vulnerable. In that moment, the scarred partner hurls his energy-infused blade. It slices through the soldiers before returning to his hand. The auctioneer is tossed aside, and the bandit grumbles that things are becoming boring. He decides to seize the mana stone himself, but before his hand can reach it, a strong grip clamps around his wrist. The hold belongs to the man with animal ears. The bandit cries out in pain as the stranger tightens his grasp. Murmurs spread through the audience as they notice the man's ears and tail. Recognition dawns. He is Lenost, a mage from the association. Whispers ripple across the room, and someone mutters, "He is the loyal hunting dog of association." Furious, Lenost turns to the audience and demands to know who insulted him. The scar-faced bandit reacts in desperation and throws his blade at Lenost. Yet the weapon bounces harmlessly off, leaving Lenost unharmed. With their only weapon now lodged in a wall, fear grips the two thieves. Ren watches in awe, realizing the guards were only a front while someone powerful had been hidden among them. She feels even greater shock knowing it is an association mage. Rude, seated calmly on the railing, tells her to look carefully, hinting that this man had been present on that fateful day as well. Ren begins to understand his meaning. After subduing the bandits, Lenost turns to the shaken crowd. He commands the mages to stay calm and warns that reckless action around the mana stone will lead to disaster. Anyone who touches it or behaves suspiciously will regret facing him. He prepares to secure the stone under a protective dome once more, but he panics to realize that the stone is already gone. The auctioneer points in shock toward the statue at the center of the hall. At its top stands Shik, Lenosta's own companion, holding the mana stone. Shik ignores Lenosta completely. He murmurs that he can feel that the one he is searching for has arrived. Then, in a loud voice, Shik challenges Blackie, declaring that if Blackie does not reveal himself, he will consume the stone. The audience has no idea who Shik is speaking to, but Ren looks at Blow in alarm, realizing the target of this taunt is none other than him. Ren grows frustrated, realizing their situation has grown far more complicated. She urges him to consider retreating, but Blow refuses, unwilling to abandon his mission because of Shik. Meanwhile, the hall grows tense. Some of the mages consider fighting for the stone but quickly lose their will. With Shik, they know their chances are slim. The only one they believe might succeed is the mysterious black mage whispered about in recent days. Tessiana walks straight toward the commotion. Shik remains perched on the statue, mocking the black mage for hiding. Lanost, furious with his reckless behavior, orders him to come down immediately. Shik refuses, insisting the old man should leave him alone. The insult drives Lanost to the edge, and he warns Shik that if he does not behave, he will show him the true meaning of fury. But before their conflict escalates further, blue energy suddenly bursts through the hall. The statue cracks and collapses, shattering in the center. Dust rises as people gasp. Lady Tessiana is standing there with a sword in her hand. She declares she has come to participate in the auction, and has even brought a silver coin, only for them to ruin it. Lanost is stunned and irritated by the trivial amount she offers. But before he can speak further, Tessiana turns her hostility toward Shik. She warns that he is in her way. Shik responds with equal hostility, calling her a crazy woman and claiming she is the one blocking him. Ren wonders who the mysterious blue-haired woman truly is, uncertain how long she can hold her own. Yet she senses this chaos may open the path for her and Rude. Looking at Blow, she finds him still perched on the railing, watching intently. But his focus is not on Tessiana or Shik. It turns out his eyes are locked on a man in the hall, casually flirting with a young woman. A smirk crosses his face as he mutters that he has found him. The clash inside the auction hall intensifies. Tessiana charges against Shik, her sword glowing with strength as she leaps above him, using gravity to increase her strike. The blade comes down with force, but Shik lifts his hand and blocks it effortlessly. He sighs in irritation, calling her the kind of nobody who always appears to disturb him. At the same time, he forms an energy sphere with his free hand and launches it at close range. The blast sends Tessiana flying across the hall, smashing into the wall with a violent crash. Dust and rubble fill the air. From within the dust, Tessiana rises again, leaning on her sword, her eyes burning with anger. She refuses to accept being called insignificant and declares her name with pride. A deep blue glow surrounds her eyes, and her aura flares with icy energy. She unleashes her awakening, filling the air with the power of ice. Shik frowns but scoffs, mocking the idea that her awakening will change the outcome. Tessiana warns him to prepare himself, then rushes forward with renewed force. The princess, watching from her seat, becomes excited at the sight of Tessiana's awakening. The butler at her side, however, grows nervous and urges her to leave immediately. He reminds her that they had already come without permission, and if danger falls upon her, the punishment will be his to bear. Around them, nobles and mages panic. Some whisper frantically about the mana stone, while others shout for an escape route, and soon the entire hall is swallowed by confusion. In the middle of the chaos, Lanost struggles to push through the crowd. He is furious on Shik, who has begun fighting without handing over the mana stone. This forces him to search for the stone himself, increasing his frustration. Amidst this disorder, Blow moves calmly through the hall, wearing a white robe. His eyes remain fixed on his mission target, a man with shoulder-length hair embracing a young woman. The crowd's focus on the mana stone gives him the perfect cover. He wonders how to expose the mark on the man's leg, and the only method he can imagine is to tear away his pants. The absurdity of it frustrates him, but no better plan comes to mind. Thinking of his master's strange instructions, Blow seizes an opportunity. He leans close to another man searching for the mana stone and whispers that he saw someone hiding it. Pointing discreetly toward the target in purple clothing, he claims that he saw that man hide the stone in his pants. The listener believes the story instantly and confronts the target, accusing him. The sudden accusation sparks a chain reaction. Several others join in and attack the target, demanding the stone. Blow can hardly believe the plan worked. Yet the target, angered, draws his sword and curses the attackers for exposing him. The surrounding mages realize with shock that he does indeed have the mana stone, while Blow is equally surprised that his words have actually come true. The target reveals himself as Cloak, and with a manic grin he chants "Awaken." Energy surges from his body, filling the hall with violent force. Orbs of destructive power swirl around him as he warns that anyone who covets the mana stone will face him. He hurls attacks at the mages who had struck him, But before they can land, a dark energy blade cuts through them. Blow steps in, and with precision, he disarms Cloak, knocking away his weapon. The black aura radiating from him shocks the audience. Whispers ripple among nobles and wizards as they recognize the Black Mage. Even Lanost is astonished. Still, Cloak refuses to surrender and clutches the Mana Stone tightly, insisting it belongs to him. Blow almost laughs at the absurdity of the claim. He reminds Cloak that stealing does not make this stone his, and he is not here for the stone, but for him. Yet before Blow can strike, he senses a surge of energy rushing toward him. A massive whirlpool of red energy crashes down. It is a sword strike aimed directly at him. He dodges it with ease, but in the next instant, the attacker closes the distance, seizes his shirt, and pulls his face close. It is Schick. With bloodshot eyes and a manic smile, Schick greets him with a mocking, "Hi, Blackie." Blow grows frustrated at the sight of Schick blocking his mission. Before he can react, Schick slams him into the ground with overwhelming energy. The crash shakes the hall, debris exploding outward as smoke fills the air. Nobles and mages panic, scrambling to flee the collapsing sections of the building. Only the bravest remain, watching through the haze. Tessiana, still aching from the earlier counterattack of Schick, rises slowly. She curses the pain and fumes at Schick having taken her sword too. She vows not to be defeated a second time. In another corner, Cloak seizes the opportunity. With Blow distracted by Schick, Cloak flees with the Mana Stone. Several mages, eager to stop him, keep chasing him. Cloak sneers at them as worthless pests. He conjures a sphere of energy and blasts the group, mocking them as weak nobodies. Unexpectedly, a woman blocks him. She reminds Cloak that not all present are weaklings. Cloak raises his arms to defend, but her strike lands. More powerful mages reveal themselves. They were hidden until now, all targeting the rare Mana Stone. In moments, Cloak is surrounded near the exit. He grits his teeth, realizing he is cornered. Inside, whispers spread as the crowd realizes the Black Mage is fighting Schick, an association wizard. Even the young prince trembles at its scale. Searching for his father, he discovers the man fled long ago. The prince understands he should also escape, yet his curiosity binds him. The chance to witness a battle between legendary mages is too precious to abandon. Ren, watching anxiously, feels despair. She had miscalculated, never expecting an association mage like Schick to appear. The mission was supposed to be low risk, so she brought no mana orb to recharge Blow. She fears the fight will drag on and weaken him further. She wonders what plan he can possibly form. Meanwhile, in the center of the hall, Blow steadies himself. He tells Schick he does not seek the Mana Stone, hoping to avoid needless conflict. Schick grins, refusing to believe him. Blow clarifies that his purpose lies elsewhere, and points out that it is the duty of Schick to protect the auction. If that is true, both should focus on their own business instead of fighting. But above them, Schick keeps conjuring a massive crimson magic circle. Blow warns that such reckless magic is dangerous, but Schick ignores the caution. He admits that since that fateful day, he has hunted for the Black Mage. Missions, rumors, and incidents, he followed all in hopes of finding him. Still, he never succeeded until now. Blow reflects, so this is why. He was given pathetic missions again and again, so that he doesn't come across this idiot. Schick, however, is consumed by obsession and attacks with unrelenting force. Blow conjures a long black sword from dark energy and raises it to block the strike, but Schick only presses in closer. Staring into his eyes, Schick demands the Black Mage to show him the same cold look that once froze his spine. He unleashes his strongest attacks without care for the hall or its people. The building trembles as stone pillars shatter and ceilings collapse. Screams rise as chaos grows. Lanost rushes to save innocents from falling rubble. He is furious at this stupid recklessness of Schick and his growing enjoyment of the battle. He vows to reclaim the Mana Stone before the entire auction collapses and to prepare an excuse for everything afterward. Cloak comes to a halt as a pillar crashes down in his path. He curses chaos, only to be struck again by attacks from the pursuing mages. They demand to know where he has hidden the Mana Stone. Dodging frantically, he suddenly hears the same knight from earlier shouting that the stone is hidden in his pants. Confusion spreads across his face, but the crowd instantly fixates on the claim. Dozens of eyes turn toward his pants, hungry with suspicion. Cloak retreats nervously, shouting that it is a lie, yet the mob advances, forcing him into desperation. Back inside, Smoke clears to reveal Shik clutching a cloak, but Blow has vanished. The black mage perches in one of the upper boxes, startling two women. With a calm gesture, he urges them to escape quietly. They blush at his presence but obey. Looking down, Blow sighs in irritation at how much mana he has wasted because of this madness. He reflects bitterly on how that reckless encounter had set the path for his master to assign him ridiculous missions ever since. Surveying the hall, Blow sees most nobles have already evacuated, leaving ruins behind. He considers the mission is about to fail, but still he thinks he must confirm the target's identity. Meanwhile, Shik grows restless, unwilling to let him go. He decides that if killing insects is the only way to draw Blow into battle, then he will exterminate everyone left. The crowd stares upward in horror as Shik conjures another massive crimson circle, stretching across the ceiling like a blood-red moon. Even Cloak notices the circle above and curses the madness. He looks back and warns if they are not worried. The mages chasing him ignore his warnings, determined to claim the stone. Cloak thinks still he can get away, but before Cloak can escape, a strike crashes into him. Dark energy hurls him backward, scattering those nearby. The black mage steps forward with a grave expression, commanding everyone to leave at once. He warns that if they value their lives more than the mana stone, they must evacuate immediately, as the building itself teeters on the brink of collapse. Lanost runs toward Sheik, shouting for him to stop the giant crimson circle. He warns that many people are still trapped inside, and asks if Shik plans to destroy everyone. Shik gives no answer, staying silent. Ren runs along the upper floor, holding the teleportation scroll. She searches for Blow so they can escape immediately. A sinister feeling presses on her chest, making her more desperate to leave. Down below, Blow faces Cloak, who steps back nervously. Cloak mocks him, saying that the black mage must want the mana stone for himself. Blow stares coldly and asks if Cloak belongs to the Coatl group. Cloak denies it, but Blow points out the facts. The bounty for Coatl is huge, and Cloak still works openly in Raiden. With each word, Cloak grows more furious. Blow assumes his suspicion is correct but wants proof. To save himself, Cloak offers the mana stone with shaking hands. Blow is shocked that Cloak really has it and starts to tell him he does not want it. Before he can finish, Shik appears and smashes Cloak into the ground. Shik sits on Cloak and taunts Blow about wasting time with garbage if he is not after the stone. Blow wants to talk, but Shik charges without listening. Blow tries to dodge, yet Shik grabs his leg and hurls him against a wall. Another part of the hall crumbles. Shik laughs, saying the black mage should at least play with him. Blow steadies himself, then both rush at each other. Before their attacks meet, their powers vanish suddenly. They drop to the floor, confused at the sudden loss of energy. Blow looks at his hands, shocked that his concentrated energy has disappeared. Lanos tries again to stop his partner but is distracted by something strange. One magic circle appears, then another, then a third. Soon, dozens of circles cover the hall. No one understands what is happening. From one circle, ice rises, cracking like laughter. The ice takes the shape of a giant monster, covered in eyes and lined with sharp teeth. Panic spreads as people scream and flee. The blonde young prince refuses to leave. He wants to know where the creature came from. Rune, his subordinate, explains that it came from the summoning circle. The monster lashes out with a huge tentacle at two civilians. The prince charges forward with his sword to protect them, but his effort fails as a massive tentacle sends him flying. Rune leaps up, catches him midair, and sets him safely on the ground. She names the creature a giant octopus and summons golden arrows through her magic. One arrow cuts a tentacle. The fallen limb lands near Lanost, who stares in confusion. Blow tells him the monsters are appearing from summoning circles. Lanost realizes this makes sense, but says he knows of no mage who could summon such huge creatures. Blow wonders who could bring so many at once. Ren finally reaches Blow. He is surprised she did not escape. She frowns, saying she could not abandon him. Lanost is stunned that the black mage has an ally who is not even a mage, but loyal enough to stay. Meanwhile, Shik turns his power against another monster, blasting it to pieces. Tentacles rain across the hall. Lanost shouts, asking where the mana stone is. Shik says it is gone. Lanost is furious, since Shik had it moments ago. Shik admits he must have lost it without noticing. Ren, overwhelmed, takes out the teleportation scroll. She calls Blow to leave at once. He moves toward her, but Shik blocks the way, grabbing his sword to hold him back. Ren yells at the madness. Lanost urges Shik to stop. Blow prepares his weapon again, this time feeling his energy fully restored. He concludes that his earlier loss of mana was only temporary and must have been connected to the appearance of monsters. Schick admits the same, saying it cannot be the fault of Blow since the monsters appeared at that moment. Blow warns that with so many creatures spawning, this is no time to fight. Schick refuses, declaring that nothing else matters to him. In defiance, he strikes at Blow in front of Ren, but before the attack can land, Lanost steps between them, determined to stop Schick. Lanost shouts at Schick to stop, telling him that clinging like a fool is not attractive, and reminding him that the mages from Tower will soon arrive. He warns that nothing good will come from fighting them. Ren is shocked at his words, but Schick still refuses. He declares that even an old man like Lanost will not be forgiven if he interferes. Blow realizes how reckless and crazy Schick really is. Ren confirms the warning from Lanost. Just then, a monster's tentacle suddenly rises behind her. The blonde prince shouts to warn her. He rushes forward and cuts the tentacle with his sword, saving her. The monster roars in pain, but then grabs the young prince and pulls him toward its mouth. Rune, his attendant, coldly asks if he wants help. The young man screams for her to save him. Before he can be swallowed, a dark slash splits the monster in half. Blow stands above the dead monsters and checks if Ren is safe. Blow concludes that the monster is low tier, without a core or real intelligence. He cannot understand who would summon such creatures. Rune helps her young master back to his feet, but the prince's attention goes to Blow and Schick. For the first time, he sees how powerful such mages are. Blow turns his gaze toward Cloak. He still has not confirmed what the mission demands. Ren joins him, realizing she forgot about the ridiculous task. She feels relieved to still have the teleportation scroll. Blow tells her that she should escape without him. She is shocked, asking if he truly intends to humiliate the man by taking his pants off, as the mission required, and her voice echoes in the broken auction hall, confusing people who overhear. Blow quickly clarifies that right now his real goal is to kill the monsters and protect the people. Ren thinks this decision is foolish since the Mage Tower can handle the crisis. Blow then calls to the blonde noble and offers him and his attendant the chance to leave with them using the scroll. Ren dislikes the idea, but the young prince becomes excited, and it is clear from his face that he has a crush on Ren. At first, she expects him to refuse, but instead he accepts happily. Rune is left confused, reflecting that they also have a scroll, yet he has still chosen to follow Ren. Lanost grows frustrated, already feeling the weight of the report he will have to write. He curses his troublemaking partner. Schick then strikes Lanost under the chin and frees himself. At the same time, Ren begins the teleportation spell. Blow orders the others to hold on to him so they can leave together. Before the spell completes, a furious voice echoes across the hall. Furious, Schick shouts in anger, asking why they are running away and where the arrogant mage has gone. The blonde noble trembles in fear and whispers to Blow that the enemy seems to be staring at him with terrifying eyes. Blow tells him not to worry about the crazy man but urges Ren to hurry. Schick refuses to let Blow escape. Overflowing with hate, he creates another massive crimson circle above the ceiling. Even the monsters quiver in fear at the power of this spell. Lanost cannot believe his partner is trying that suicidal magic again. The blonde prince stares up in fear. Blow urges Ren to finish quickly. Finally, the scroll spell is complete. The words of teleportation activate. At that very moment, a massive explosion erupts inside the auction, and the hall blazes with fire. Far away, in a forest outside the city, a cloaked figure observes. He holds a small circle of magic in his palm before he closes it, dissolving the energy. Perched on his shoulder is a smaller version of the octopus monster that had wreaked havoc in the hall earlier. He laughs, amused by the destruction, and asks his partner what she thinks. On a nearby branch sits a girl named Ruby Monty. She holds a small book in one hand and the same mana stone that was about to auction today in the other. Her golden eyes glow coldly. She disagrees with his amusement. She crushes the stone into fragments, letting the pieces fall like glittering confetti. She whispers with disdain that to think they will cause such a ruckus for this tiny stone, humans are pathetic, idiotic creatures. Once back in Ophion, Ren reports all the details to the master. He reads the report about the disaster. The auction house has been destroyed. The magic stone has disappeared, and strange monsters appeared. He first smiles at the chaos, but Ren's angry stare makes him stop. She scolds him for sending them on a ridiculous mission that nearly cost their lives. The master responds that he is glad they returned safely. He sighs and says if he had known Shik Muan would be there, he would never have sent them. Ren still wonders why Shik is obsessed with Blow, feeling it is more than just fighting. The master explains lightly that the Muan family is a little crazy. He assures her that Shik will eventually lose interest, and until then, they must simply avoid him. Ren realizes this is why Blow is sent on strange missions. The master turns back to the report. Something feels wrong. He already thought it was strange that a high-grade magic stone was put in a public auction, but the sudden mass summoning of monsters and the disappearance of mana is beyond normal. Ren notes that the Association and the Mage Tower are making a big deal out of it, which is expected. Still, the master wonders after throwing such a half-hearted report to him, where Rude has gone. At that time, Rude is in a tavern, buried in books. He finds no records about monster summoning, which frustrates him. A boy named Ben brings him a drink and greets him warmly, since they have not met in a long time. Ben is surprised to see Rude studying so hard. To hide the real reason, Rude says he is just curious. Ben still realizes that Rude must be very intelligent to study these magic circles. Rude pats his head with a small smile and appreciates him. Ben then tells Rude that his sister always taught him that people should stay humble. Rude asks Ben he must be very busy because the tavern is full of customers. Ben says it is not hard for him since most customers spend their time talking. Then he asks Rude if he has heard stories of the Black Mage. Hearing this, Rude becomes uneasy. Ben happily explains how evil mages tried to steal a magic stone at an auction, but the Black Mage appeared and defeated them all, saving everyone. Rude knows the truth is different, since the auction ended in ruins, but he does not want to break the boy's happiness. Ben wishes his sister could become powerful like the Black Mage. Rude is surprised to hear he has a sister. Ben proudly says she entered Helios, which he explains is not just a school, but a special place for the best of the best. He feels happy, but also sad since they are apart, and his letters do not always reach her. Before leaving, Ben wishes Rude luck with his studies and runs to his mother. Left alone, Rude closes his eyes and spreads his concentration, listening to people's conversations. In one corner, some say Shik Muan won. Others claim the Black Mage only wanted to save people. Some argue the explosion was the tower's work. Another rumor says Cloak stole the stone. A stranger even insists the Black Mage is actually a woman. Rude is shocked by so many rumors, yet no one speaks of the truth. He also notices there is no mention of the monsters, meaning the tower covered it up to avoid panic. He wonders if there is a problem with the protective barrier, but dismisses the thought since the city still feels calm. He looks at the drawing of the magic circle he made, but no clue appears. He decides he must speak to the master. Far away, outside the city, a white-haired man in a white hood named Lispin is traveling with the carriage of Lady Daner. Someone asks Lispin why they have stopped, and he replies that there is some commotion up ahead but nothing to worry about. Glancing at the carriage, he asks the woman inside, Lady Daner, if she is certain about what she is doing. The elegant Lady Daner reminds him that she has already answered that question several times. She reaffirms, if this can help that child even a little, she says, then she will do anything. At the same time, Rude is walking through the streets, still lost in thought about his magic circle. The wind suddenly takes the paper from his hands. He chases after it as it rises above the cobblestones. Nearby, a group of thugs are harassing a young man for his bag, refusing to return it and claiming they found it lying on the ground. The man demands they give it back, but the leader sneers and tells him to get on his knees and beg harder. Suddenly, a gust of wind blows one of Rude's papers into the leader's face. The thug curses and tosses it aside. At that moment, someone snatches the bag away from the bullies, and when the leader turns, he sees Rude holding it. The thug demands Rude return it, but Rude calmly replies that he also picked it up from the ground. Without another word, he hands it back to its rightful owner, who quickly flees. The thugs are stunned and furious at this. The leader releases a dark aura and warns that the boy must be taught a lesson. Rude sizes him up and realizes he is only a weak magic user. Rather than waste time on these weaklings, he chooses to run. With a leap, he vaults over a building, and while in midair, he notices a royal carriage. Lispin senses the presence above and lifts his head, and his eyes meet with Rude. Inside the carriage, Lady Daner hears a sudden thud above her. She wonders what has happened, and when she looks out, she sees the crowd in shock. On top of the carriage stands a small blonde boy who has fallen from the sky. It is Rude. With a calm smile, he remarks that the carriage is very sturdy. People are left speechless at his strange words. Without hesitation, Rude jumps down from the roof, lands gracefully on the street, and immediately runs away. The crowd watches the boy flee. Lisbon reacts quickly. He draws his sword and places it against Rude's shoulder, warning him to stop. Dressed in a luxurious robe, Lisbon demands to know if Rude understands whose carriage he has stepped on. Rude bows deeply, apologizing sincerely. He admits that he does not know the owner of the carriage, but he should not have landed there even by accident. He assures them he is sorry and promises to be more careful. Lisbon is caught off guard by the boy's politeness. Unable to continue pressing him, he accepts the apology. Rude thanks him and slips away. One of Lisbon's companions laughs softly, teasing him for drawing a sword on a child. She remarks that the boy's apology was genuine and wonders why he felt threatened. Lisbon scoffs, pointing out that the child is no ordinary boy. The fall from such a height should have injured him, yet he landed perfectly unharmed. His companion agrees, saying that the boy must have talent and could have a bright future. She even suggests that Lisbon should consider taking the boy as a disciple. Lisbon gives her a sharp look in response, clearly not interested in the idea. Lady Daner herself steps down from the carriage, curious about their discussion. She observes that the boy appears both intelligent and strong. The woman's comment makes Lisbon's companion smile, and she goes further, suggesting that the boy could even be recruited into the magic troupe. Lisbon grows annoyed at the teasing, but Lady Daner laughs lightly at his frustration. Lisbon then turns his concern back to Lady Daner, asking if she has been harmed by the sudden impact inside the carriage. She assures him that she is fine, noting that the carriage is sturdy enough to withstand much more. She then changes the topic, saying they are already close to their destination, and since the weather is pleasant, it would be nice to take a walk. Lisbon agrees since it is Lady Daner's wish. Nearby, Rude hides behind a stone pillar, secretly observing them. He judges Lady Daner to be a noblewoman and Lisbon to be a highly skilled knight. He feels lucky that the matter has ended without serious consequences. With a sigh, he admits that his luck has been bad lately, but he is glad he will never meet that noblewoman again. Later, fate proves him wrong. At their destination, Rude walks into a room and finds Lady Daner and Lisbon seated with his master. He realizes who she is and quietly asks his master if he can stay outside. But the master refuses, saying Lady Daner is an important client. Curious about the boy, Lady Daner asks who Rude is. She does not reveal that they have already met. The master proudly defends him, saying that although Rude looks small and ordinary, he is actually one of the greatest talents in Ophion. Rude feels frustrated by his master's words, especially when the master calls him a 7th-tier novice. He wonders why his master belittles him in front of nobles but decides to keep silent. Lady Daner takes a sip of her drink and comments that Ophion seems to have many remarkable people. She mentions that in the streets, she often hears people speak about the Black Mage of Ophion, someone who is praised as incredible. She expresses interest in meeting this famous figure. The master quickly explains that the Black Mage is away on a mission. Both Lady Daner and her guards seem disappointed by this news. Changing the focus, Lady Daner turns to Rude. With a calm smile, she says they have met before. The master is confused, not understanding what she means. Lady Daner gently corrects herself, saying that perhaps Rude has not properly seen her. She then reveals that she is the owner of the carriage on which he had fallen earlier. Rude lowers his head in surprise, while the master stares at him sharply, trying to understand the situation. Lady Daner closes her eyes for a moment, speaking softly. She says it must be fate that brought them together again. She adds that the boy seems trustworthy. Hearing this, the master is surprised, but he quickly thanks her for her words, addressing her with her full title, Duchess of Artian. Rude is stunned by the revelation. He had guessed she was a noblewoman, but never imagined she was a duchess. Lady Daner then explains the true reason for her visit. She has traveled such a long distance because of her second son, who now studies at Helios. She reveals that he is struggling with school life, and she needs help. Lady Daner speaks to her loyal guard Fran and asks for the documents. Fran hands her a folder that contains the student list of Helios Academy and a report about its internal situation. At the mention of Helios, Rude realizes that this name has followed him throughout the day. Lady Daner begins to explain. It has only been 1 month since her second son entered Helios. Yet in that short time, she has heard disturbing reports. Students at the academy are calling her son an abomination. The master cannot believe anyone would dare insult the son of such a powerful ducal family. Lady Daner explains further. Her son is not the only noble there, and rules of Helios forbid outside interference once a student is enrolled. It is already too late to withdraw him. The Duchess admits she feels troubled because her second son has always been fragile. Since childhood, attention and love have gone mostly to his older brother. leaving him isolated and lonely. Busy duties kept her from giving him the warmth he needed, and over time he grew into a boy who hides his pain and cannot show his wounds. Now she worries that Helios will only deepen his suffering. She pleads with Ophion to ensure her son can live peacefully at school and not face cruel treatment any longer. After Lady Daner leaves, Rude turns to his master and demands an explanation. The master acts innocent, which makes Rude furious. He insists that this absurd situation must be clarified. The master, smiling calmly, confirms that the Duchess's request is exactly what it seems, and Rude will be the one to handle it. Rude is stunned. He cannot believe such a ridiculous mission is being pushed onto him. He protests that his master introduced him badly, even ranking him 7th. The master replies that he cannot present him as the Black Mage, so the lower ranking was the best cover. Rude argues that the master could have avoided introducing him at all. The master dismisses his anger, pointing out that Helios students are only apprentices who have not yet awakened their full powers. Rude grows even angrier as he realizes the master treats the matter as already settled. Rude explains that there are several inconsistencies in his earlier mission, and the situation is still unclear, so he must look into it. Even so, the master insists that Rude focus only on the current mission and forget what happened in the auction hall. Taking out a folder, the master hands it to Rude. Inside is an official admission letter to Helios in Rude's name. Rude freezes in shock. He asks if this is some kind of joke. The master tells him to listen before reacting, but Rude has already made up his mind. He declares that their relationship is over. He thanks the master for everything until now, then says goodbye to the Ophion team. With his backpack in hand, he prepares to leave. The master panics and rushes after him. He protests loudly, saying he invested so much effort, care, and even food in Rude, and now Rude dares to abandon him. Rude is outraged that the master handled his life this way without even asking. The master admits that if he had asked, Rude would have rejected the idea immediately, which is why he acted in secret. He argues that Rude is not going there to study, but to complete a mission. Rude still refuses to accept it. The master becomes dramatic, holding his hand and speaking about immense love, comparing it to a vast ocean. Rude cannot believe the nonsense coming out of him, but just then, Ren enters the office. She asks what they are doing and complains about their embarrassing act. The master scolds her for interrupting, but she replies that she did knock. Then she orders both of them to sit down and act properly. Rude feels betrayed when he realizes Ren also knew about this plan. She gives him an awkward smile, telling him not to take it too seriously. She suggests that he treat it as a small trip, because compared to him, the other students are only children. She also points out that the Duchess's request is not dangerous. Instead, he can use the time to relax, live school life, and maybe make some friends his own age. Rude falls silent and then mutters that he does not need friends. The master and Ren sigh at his stubbornness. The master warns that this request comes directly from the Duchess herself, who traveled a long distance to ask. If Rude refuses, Ophion might even lose his own life. He puts on a performance, crying into a cloth as if preparing his will. Ren grows irritated and smacks him to stop his nonsense. She admits it was wrong for the master to act without telling Rude first. She says the choice must now be Rude's, since he is already officially enrolled at Helios. The room grows quiet until Rude finally asks if all he has to do is help the Duchess's second son. Both Ren and the master celebrate at once, surprised he accepted. They praise him, calling him the rising star of Ophion. Rude doubts himself, wondering if he should just run away instead. The master hands him more papers, warning him to hide the fact that he is an awakened mage. Helios believes he is only a 7th-rank novice, so he cannot reveal his true powers. The master adds that the mission is safe because nothing at Helios is too dangerous. Rude looks at the long list of school materials. The master jokes that this mission is like a vacation for the Black Mage, but at the same time, it is Rude Creasy's first official mission. Rude cannot believe how the master twists everything to make it sound exciting. He studies the documents and comes across a photo of a boy with long hair and a frightening gaze. Rude assumes this must be the bully hurting the Duchess's son. However, the master shakes his head. That boy in the photo is none other than Lidersis Dien Artian, the second son of the Artian family, called a monster, the abomination at Helios, and the one suffering. The afternoon sun brightens the city, casting light over the tall buildings. Inside one of them, Ben feels frustrated because the letters he has written for his sister cannot be sent. The woman in front of him explains that Helios has strict rules against external items. Without a proper certificate, no letter can leave. Ben wishes to send just one, but the rule remains firm. The woman advises him to ask his parents since his sister, already a student of Helios, should have a certificate. Yet Ben knows this will not work, as his mother forbids him from sending letters. Helpless, he pleads for another way, but the woman shakes her head. Just when the boy's hope begins to fade, a hand reaches forward holding a certificate. It belongs to the Rude, who appeared at the perfect time. He needs his belongings delivered to Helios and uses the chance to include the letters of Ben as well. Seeing this kindness, Ben becomes excited and relieved, while Rude quietly takes on the responsibility of delivering his letters. Beyond the city stands the famous Helios School. Its immense and luxurious campus stretches across the horizon, alive with students moving about, each occupied with their own concerns. Within the school corridors, rumors spread quickly. A new student is arriving, someone who achieved a perfect score on the entrance exam. Some whisper that he must be a prodigy. Others say he only comes late because of illness. Many already plan to befriend him, hoping to gain help with their grades. Amid the chatter, a white-haired girl sighs, wishing for peace. Students settle into their seats as they wait for the next lesson. One of them, Varys, continues to sleep lazily at his desk. Just then, the noise dies down as a young boy enters the classroom. He walks slowly, pulls out a chair at the back and sits quietly with his head lowered. In the hushed whispers, someone calls him Abomination. This boy is Lidersis Dion Artian, the second son of the Duchess. Meanwhile, Rude reviews his situation. According to his documents, he is recorded as a prodigy with a chronic illness, someone who has achieved a perfect score. He can hardly believe it, since he never even saw the exam. This fake story from his master feels stupid, a false image made to cover up his late entry into the school. While the master laughs it off, Rude curses him silently. He hates being forced into the role of a little genius. Walking through the halls of Helios, Rude observes the flow of magic around him, impressed by its abundance. Even so, his only thought is to finish the mission as quickly as possible. The professor guiding him reminds him not to worry, since at Helios age and status hold little meaning. What truly matters here is talent. The man explains that many arrive filled with dreams, but most fail to break past their limits and fall into despair. Rude listens with little enthusiasm, replying coldly that if he tries and cannot succeed, he should be beaten. The professor laughs, seeing in him a sharp spirit. The professor then explains that Helios is a place that trains people who can sense and use magic. It raises them into true Mayos. Students are divided into 3 levels. The upper class is Heris. The middle class is Clad. The beginner class is Eden. New students always start in Eden. They can move up by passing the yearly promotion exam. Finally, the time comes for his introduction. In front of the class, the professor announces his arrival, asking the others not to exclude him for joining late. The students murmur in surprise when Rude introduces himself with little more than a few words. They notice how young he looks compared to them, yet his presence feels different. While the others study him, Rude's eyes search for his true target. At the back of the room, sitting in silence with a vacant gaze, is Lidersis Dion Arshan, the boy everyone calls Abomination, and the one he has been sent to protect. Rude quietly observes Lidersis and wonders why he is sitting alone in silence. The teacher directs Rude to take his seat, and this allows him to study the so-called monster from a closer view. Lidersis does not appear fragile or weak, which makes Rude wonder if the cruel nickname is really hurting him. In such a prestigious academy where talent is celebrated, he cannot understand why someone has received such a label. He decides it is better to watch first and investigate later rather than judge too quickly. When Rude sits down, the boy in front of him turns with bright curiosity. He greets Rude warmly and says he is amazed that Rude got a perfect score. He quickly starts asking about Rude's age and background while proudly sharing his own. Rude replies that he is only 15. The boy smiles and says he knew Rude was younger than most of them. The blue-haired student introduces himself as Dio Varys and insists that Rude call him casually, promising they can be friends since they share the same class. Rude listens but remains distant, preferring not to stand out. The teacher interrupts and warns Varys to stop chatting during class. Rude feels his plan to remain invisible slipping away. During the first break, several students surround him. They bombard him with questions about his past, his private teacher, and even his rumored illness. The attention is overwhelming, and Rude keeps silent, hoping they will lose interest. However, their curiosity only grows stronger. His cold expression makes them whisper that he might be feeling unwell. Varys suddenly steps forward to rescue him, declaring that he has been given the important duty of showing Rude around the school. Jealous voices rise among the other classmates, but Varys quickly pushes them aside. In the commotion, Rude glances toward the desk of Lidersis and notices that the boy has already left without anyone paying attention. He considers searching for him, but Varys pulls him by the shoulders and drags him out of the classroom, calling him his new friend. The two cross a corridor that stretches over a lake. Varys explains that the academy is so enormous that a newcomer can easily get lost, but with time, one becomes familiar with its layout. He tries to ease Rude into casual conversation, asking if he can call him by his first name. Rude does not mind and accepts without resistance. Varys then shares his own story. He admits that when he first entered Helios, he was overwhelmed with joy because coming from a non-noble family, he never thought he could succeed. For a short moment, he believed his happiness would begin there. Reality proved harsher than dreams. Despite his efforts, he ended up ranking at the bottom of every exam. With a bittersweet smile, he praises Rude as the complete opposite, a genius who aced the entrance test. Rude brushes off the admiration by saying it was only luck. Varys, half crying, begs him to share some of that luck. In return, Rude responds with strange bluntness. He points out that Varys is also lucky, since not everyone has the ability to consistently place last out of so many students. This leaves Varys speechless, unsure if he should laugh or feel insulted. Soon, they arrive at the Central Library, one of the most important places in Helios. The building impresses Rude with its enormous size and multiple floors stacked above one another. Varys agrees and explains that the collection of magical material here is unmatched. He points to glowing orbs placed around the study tables, explaining that these orbs project a soundproof barrier so students can study in peace. Rude admires the effect, but immediately calculates how expensive it must be to maintain such enchantments across the entire library. Varys then explains that the library has 4 levels, but only beginners like them can access the first floor. When Rude asks why, Varys sighs and calls it the sadness of the lower classes. Just then, a voice calls down to them from the upper floor. The one calling is a blonde senior with long hair, wearing the badge of the superior Heres class. He identifies Varys as part of Professor Hale's class and recalls seeing him before. The senior casually mentions the monster in their class and asks Varys how he is that monster doing. Varys quickly responds that the boy is fine. The senior smiles darkly, remarking that this is truly a misfortune, and then leaves with his companions. Varys almost collapses from nervousness, clutching his chest in relief once the senior is gone. Rude, confused, wonders aloud if Varys was simply frightened because of the difference in class status. Varys shakes his head and insists that Rude does not yet understand the true hierarchy of Helios. Grabbing Rude's shoulders, he urges him to listen carefully to rules necessary for survival in this dangerous academy. The first rule, Varys says, is to never go against the Heres class. These students are the elite, few in number but overwhelmingly powerful. There are only 20 of them, yet each could defeat hundreds of regular students. They hold privileges beyond imagination and dominate the social order of Helios. Rude frowns, thinking they are still only children who have not awakened their full abilities, but Varys insists they are untouchable. Out of 400 students, these 20 shine like stars in the night sky. Rude asks for the second rule, and Varys lowers his voice. Among the Heres, one must be especially cautious of Chevla von Hadelio, the blonde young man they just met. According to Varys, this person is dangerous to confront and must be avoided at all costs. Encounters with the Heres may be rare, but humility is the only safe path when facing them. Varys adds that their talents are not the only thing to fear. Their personalities are. Rude finishes his sentence. Disgusting. Terrified that someone might hear, Varys throws an arm around him and laughs loudly to cover the remark. He whispers urgently, warning Rude never to speak such thoughts openly. Varys explains in hushed tones that Chevla von Hadelio is not just another student, but the heir of the powerful Hadelio Mark family. Backed by wealth and influence, Chevla is untouchable even to the teachers, who prefer to ignore his behavior rather than confront him. Rumors circulate through the academy that anyone unfortunate enough to draw his attention is dragged into a torment that ruins their lives completely. The shadows around him are whispered to be far darker than what outsiders imagine. Varys stresses that the young man called the monster is the clearest example of what happens to those caught in Chevla's net. Rude is curious for more details, but Varys cuts him off, pulling him away and insisting that gloomy talk is useless when there are better things to see. He spends the entire afternoon parading Rude through the academy grounds. The tour begins with the fountain in the courtyard, where students gather between classes. It continues through a cluster of shops that sell supplies and food, then into the temple, where the academy's spiritual ceremonies are held. Throughout the journey, Varys talks endlessly, filling every silence with stories and observations. Rude, however, finds the entire day exhausting. By sunset, Rude feels he has completed an expedition rather than a simple orientation tour. He notes that Varys has only been at Helios for a month, yet acts as though he knows every corner of the place. A thought crosses his mind that if Varys studied with half the energy he spends talking, he would not sit at the very bottom of the class rankings. At the end of the day, Rude visits the office of Academy Organizer. She checks his name and informs him that his luggage has finally arrived. She also informs him that a temporary room will be provided to him until a permanent assignment is ready. Rude is surprised, since he assumed a room would already be decided. The woman clarifies that all students outside the higher classes must share rooms, but his class currently has no vacant spaces. The issue will be resolved in a few days. Rude then recalls information given by the Duchess. With a faint smile, he points out that there is indeed one available room, the one occupied by Leadersis, who stays alone. The organizer is startled at his knowledge, but reluctantly admits the truth. Embarrassed, she hesitates before agreeing, warning that he can request a change later if needed. Holding the key, Rude reflects on the small effort it took to get what he wanted. This choice places him exactly where his mission lies. Entering the room, he is struck by its luxury. Golden accents decorate the beds and arches, and the space is far too grand for a shared dormitory. He then notices a figure under the covers of one bed. Assuming it is Leadersis, he pulls back the blanket and finds the boy sleeping with an unexpectedly calm expression. In class, Leadersis appeared burdened, yet here his face is peaceful, as if he could momentarily forget the cruelty directed at him. Rude wonders whether to feel relieved at this sight. He begins unpacking his belongings when an uneasy sensation crawls up his spine. Turning, he catches Leadersis with open eyes before the boy quickly pretends to be asleep again. An unspoken awareness settles between them. One knows the other is awake, yet both remain silent. Elsewhere, a young man with sea-green hair is walking through the corridors with books in hand. He stops suddenly when he hears a chilling voice. The voice complains about being summoned too often, saying it has business to do. The student follows the sound to a chamber, where he sees a shadowy figure and a man bowing before it. The man tells the shadow that he needs more time to avoid the eyes of those in the tower. He insists he will keep the contract, but begs to be given a little more time. Realization strikes when he recognizes the room belongs to Professor Hale. Bursting in, he demands to know what is happening. Professor Hale calmly adjusts his glasses and asks what the student is talking about. The boy stammers that he saw a dark shadow, but the professor denies everything. The boy never notices the enormous shadow sliding across the ceiling. When it finally descends, he sees it too late. The darkness devours him before he can scream, leaving nothing behind. The professor again adjusts his glasses and promises that he will fulfill the contract. By morning, Helios is quiet, as if the nightmare never occurred. Rude wakes beneath the decorated ceiling and realizes he has overslept. Turning to the other bed, he finds it empty. Leadersis has already gone. Memories of the boy's false slumber from the previous night return to his mind. Rude decides not to force interaction too soon. He knows trust takes time, and patience is necessary. Looking out the window, he sees students gathered in groups, whispering with excitement. Their eyes turn upward toward his room. Confused, he wonders why they focus on him. Down below, rumors spread like wildfire. Everyone has learned that the boy who topped the entrance exam is sharing a room with the infamous monster. Speculation rises about whether the Heres are already targeting him, but the loudest gossip insists that Rude himself requested this arrangement. Later, standing on the school's roof, Rude listens closely to the murmurs. He realizes his decision has spread faster than he expected, and it is already creating tension. The situation is more dangerous than he first thought. Quiet observation is no longer enough. He knows he must act soon to control the story before it grows into something he cannot handle. Just then, Rude notices a group of students dragging Leadersis with them. Some bystanders whisper about calling a teacher, but most shake their heads, warning that getting involved could only bring disaster. From the rooftop, Rude listens to every murmur. They take Leadersis to a corner, and in that hidden corner, one student from Heres pushes Leadersis against the wall. He mocks him with cruel words, repeating that the central corridor is not a place for a monster. He reminds him that he should hide like a rat instead of walking in front of others. Leadersis remains silent, his face empty of expression. This only fuels the bully's arrogance. He sneers that nobility means nothing when someone is born a monster. He claims that the Ardean family has abandoned Leadersis and that even his own brother denies their bond. The insult cuts deep, but Leadersis does not reply. The student grins with satisfaction, declaring that it feels good to crush someone unwanted by their own blood. Then the bully steps hard on Lidersus's hand. One of his companions nervously warns him that harming the son of a duke might bring consequences, yet the boy laughs. He argues that hurting a monster is no crime, and he relishes the rare chance to step on someone of noble lineage. Just then, a heavy book strikes him on the head, knocking him unconscious. Confused, the remaining 2 students look around, and then they notice Rude, who is standing calmly above them. He states that the book is his, and asks if they can return it. Before they can react, Rude jumps down from the roof and lands on one of them. The boy collapses instantly. Lidersus lifts his head and stares in surprise at the sudden intervention. Rude speaks with cold detachment, remarking that he had expected to land on the ground instead. The last student, filled with panic, demands to know what Rude thinks he is doing. Rude answers in a deep tone that such a question is meaningless. Angered by the arrogance of an Eden class student, the boy swings his fist, aiming to silence Rude. But Rude catches his wrist mid-air and holds firmly. Shock spreads through him as he realizes that Rude is leagues above him. Rude tightens his grip slowly, bringing fear to his face. Rude reminds him that he attacked first and then punches him, sending him crashing to the ground unconscious. The courtyard falls silent. In moments, 3 bullies lie defeated. Even Rude is surprised that such light effort toppled them so easily. He turns to Lidersus, who instinctively tries to escape. Rude calls after him, but Lidersus turns with a sharp glare, warning him not to approach. He insists that Rude must stay away from him. Seeing Lidersus running away from the alley, 2 girls rush in, shocked, and kneel beside the fallen bullies to check their condition. Rude hides behind a pillar, watching their reactions. Rude goes back to the grounds and notes that Lidersus is acting differently from the day before. He wonders where he went and if he should follow him. Soon after, Varus joins him, tugging at his arm and dragging him away. He locks the 2 of them inside a storage room to speak privately. His tone is urgent as he confirms the rumors. Rude is indeed sharing a room with Lidersus Artian. He admits regret for not warning him clearly the day before. He pleads with Rude to change rooms for the sake of his peace at the academy. Rude listens without showing emotion. Varus becomes more desperate, reminding him that getting close to the wrong person will turn his life into hell. He explains that the monster Chevle had mentioned is none other than the second son of the Artian family. Because of Chevle's influence, everyone avoids Lidersus and calls him Abomination, even though he belongs to noble blood. Varus insists that Lidersus is already marked by Chevle, and anyone standing near him will also be dragged into trouble. Rude remains calm and acknowledges the explanation. He states that it is clear Chevle von Hadelio holds power, but he challenges the idea of justification. He asks whether it is right for everyone to abandon Lidersus and label him a monster just because of Chevle. Unknown to them, Lidersus is hiding in the same room, listening quietly to everything said about him. Varus stays silent after Rude's sharp question about fairness. He tries to look away, confirming that deep inside he also believes the treatment of Lidersus is unjust. Rude places a hand on his shoulder and shows a bright smile before his expression hardens. He turns toward the corner where Lidersus is hiding among boxes, and with steady words, Rude asks what Lidersus himself thinks. Varus stares in shock, confused about who Rude is speaking to. Then Lidersus steps out, revealing his presence. Varus hides behind Rude, stunned that the boy had been listening to the whole time. Lidersus ignores the question and heads toward the door. Nerves make him stumble over a box, but he quickly recovers and tries to leave. Rude calls after him, yet Varus presses his hand over his mouth, whispering urgently that nothing will change, and involving oneself could bring only pain. Lidersus still hears the words. Wanting no one else to suffer because of him, he continues walking. Rude does not allow it. He grabs the boy's shirt and blocks his exit with a calm smile. He states that they need to talk. Lidersus hesitates only a moment before pulling himself free. He rejects the offer and leaves. Irritation rises in Rude, who cannot understand why Lidersus refuses help. Varus rushes to him, asking what he intended to speak about with the so-called monster. Rude excuses it by saying they share a room. The response makes Varus panic. He begs him to change rooms before gossip ruins everything. Rude ignores the plea, his thoughts fixed on his personal mission. He wants to know the truth of why Lidersus is branded a monster and what happened a month ago to cause this label. The hallways mirror the cruelty of the whispers. Wherever Lidersus walks, students avoid him, casting quick glances filled with judgment. Confusion lingers about why he still attends school. Many would have given up in his place. A dark aura seems to follow him, one that convinces others he deserves rejection. The words monster echo in his mind. Painful memories rise. Cries of a boy, the loss of a young girl, and the looks of people blaming him for it. The images of farewell, drenched in grief, return again and again. Even in the present, those memories chase him until he forces himself back to reality. In the storage room, Varys tries to answer Rude's earlier question. He admits he does not know the real reason. With a shrug and weak laugh, he confesses that everyone simply began calling Lydersis abomination. Seeing the uselessness of this explanation, Rude prepares to leave. Varys stops him, adding that he remembers something. In the beginning it was nothing serious, but then an incident changed everything. He recalls rumors of a day when many Eden students gathered in the library. That was when something shocking happened, involving Ardian. Curiosity sparks in Rude as he listens closely. Varys repeats what he has heard, that on that day Lydersis transformed into a terrifying creature with 3 eyes, thick fur, and 8 arms. He tries to make the tale sound exciting, claiming it matches the stories spreading through the academy. Rude almost rolls his eyes and warns him to stop joking. Varys insists that these are only rumors, not facts, since he was not present. Even so, he notes that the library had indeed been closed for several days after the supposed event. Something had certainly occurred, though the details are twisted beyond reason. Putting aside the absurd rumors, Varys repeats his plea for Rude to change rooms. He warns that sooner or later the news will reach the House of Harys, since gossip spreads quickly among the Eden students. Rude acknowledges that the attitudes of people have already changed, surprising Varys with how calmly he states it. Rude then asks if Varys would also avoid him if he does not change rooms. The question leaves Varys stunned. Rude shows a confident smile, brighter than before. He reminds Varys that they have only known each other for 2 days, yet he already knows Varys is not the kind of person to turn away. The words strike deeply, leaving Varys troubled. When they step back into the school corridors, all eyes turn toward them. Attention floods Rude again, similar to the day before, yet with a sharper edge. Varys lowers his head, wanting to vanish from sight, but Rude stays calm. Varys wonders nervously if Rude plans to go against everyone. Silence stretches before Rude denies the suspicion. Varys questions if Rude truly intends to help Lydersis. Rude only says it is not exactly help. In reality, it is a personal plea. Inside the classroom, Rude notices Lydersis sitting at the back again, alone at his desk. The boy's eyes remain low, and that downcast look pulls Rude's attention strongly. He keeps staring for a while, and Varys catches him doing so. Rude murmurs softly that even if nothing changes, doing nothing would mean agreeing with injustice. Those few words surprise Varys, who begins to realize what kind of person Rude truly is. Rude reflects on how cruel it is that Lydersis is always treated as a loner, a monster abandoned by everyone. Before stepping inside, he turns to Varys and says that they are already in the same boat now. That sudden remark leaves Varys unsettled. Moving forward, Rude drags his desk with boldness. He calls out his full name, Lydersis Dian Artian. Even if some pretend titles mean nothing in Helios, the Artian Duke household is not a status that can be taken lightly. Things would never have turned out like this if he had made his status public. The whole class watches in shock as he moves his desk closer to Lydersis. Whispers stir, eyes widen, and even the white-haired girl, usually mysterious and detached, lowers her book to watch closely. Rude doesn't understand. Why is Lydersis not doing anything? In the face of such cruel malice, why is he staying silent? He tells himself that he will just have to get to know it with time. The lesson begins in the classroom as if nothing unusual has happened. The teacher speaks of ancient books written by kings long ago. Those writings describe mages as messengers of the gods, chosen ones who purify the lands and destroy evil creatures. They are called saviors because only their power can push back the darkness of demons. The teacher continues to explain these words with great pride, stressing that history honors them as defenders of humanity. Students turn their pages and follow the explanations quietly. Rude listens with focus, keeping pace with the lines of his book. Lydersis keeps sitting in silence, hiding his face behind his hair, creating a wall between himself and others. Varys remains uneasy, unable to give full attention, clearly more troubled than interested. The lecture moves on, filled with old praises of power, faith, and the price of strength. Among the students, a young girl with green hair turns her head and looks at Rude for a moment. She seems to wonder why this newcomer dares to behave differently. She keeps looking at him for a moment, and then she faces forward again. The lesson soon ends, yet the atmosphere remains heavy. No spark of excitement runs through the room. Many pairs of eyes aim toward the back. The new boy who sat beside the so-called monster is now the main subject of every thought. Rude feels no weight from these stares. He chooses instead to try speaking to Leader Cease. The boy remains unmoved, keeping his silence, refusing to answer. Irritation grows inside Rude, who pushes again and again for a reply. He even calls out loud, demanding attention. Just then, Varys suddenly strikes his table to distract him. He quickly claims that he is hungry and suggests they leave to eat. This clever move spares Lydersus from more pressure and gives him temporary peace. At the cafeteria, the two sit together. Varys tries once again to reason with his friend. He says that nothing will change if it's just two of them, and besides that, the even who is suffering does not even fight back. In his eyes, there is no point in standing for someone who shows no interest in receiving help. He advises Rude to stop wasting his efforts. Rude disagrees completely. He believes that Lydersus is not indifferent, but hiding his true feelings. Something inside that boy resists, even if covered in silence. A detail during class confirmed this suspicion. Lydersus held his book upside down, pretending to read it. That small act revealed that he is aware of what happens around him, including the attention from Rude. And this discovery has strengthened the resolve of Rude. Varys grows more frustrated. He tells Rude that his friends who once laughed with him are no longer even looking at him. He lowers his head, overwhelmed by rejection. Rude instead smiles and says cheerfully that at least he is looking at Varys. Still, Varys insists that Rude should stop, but Rude repeats his point. If it were only the two of them working, it would be difficult, so they should get more classmates to join. Just then, a group of students enters the cafeteria. They move toward Rude and Varys with clear intent. The leader of the group, a young man with dark hair, fixes his eyes on Rude. He asks if this is indeed Rude Chrysi. Rude crosses his arms, meets the gaze calmly, and asks what business the boy has with him. The sharp tone irritates one of the lackeys, who steps forward angrily. Before he can act, the leader silences him with a simple order. Rude and Varys are told to follow, and they are led outside. The path takes them to a quiet garden behind the school building. In the middle of the green space, the leader takes his place on a large bench, sitting with ease as though he owns the ground beneath his feet. He commands the others to leave, and though one blonde lackey hesitates, he repeats his command, sharper this time, and they all follow. With only the three remaining, Rude recognizes the leader. This is the same boy who was with Chevla von Hadelio the day before. He is Manon from Clad. Manon looks at Rude directly and asks if he knows why he has been summoned. Rude keeps his face unchanged, answering that he has no idea, and pointing out that since he called him here, he should be the one to explain. The mocking tone darkens the eyes of Manon. Varys hides nervously behind his friend, sensing the threat in the expression of Manon. Manon rubs his forehead to calm himself, but the menace never leaves his gaze. He calls Rude fearless for acting this way as a newcomer. Then he makes his point. He warns Rude to stay away from the abomination. Rude pretends not to understand, asking if there is really such a creature in Helios. The mockery pushes Manon's patience, but he continues. He asks if Rude is acting out of wrong compassion or selfish desire. He tells him that either way, he must stop, because every action has consequences. Manon stands and faces him with a final word. This is not advice, it is a warning. Evening arrives, and the courtyard becomes quiet with only Rude and Varys sitting there. They are still thinking about the early warning from Manon. Varys worries deeply, telling Rude that maybe they should rethink their actions if things have already gone so far. He looks distressed, holding his head with his hands, unsure of what to do. The blue-haired boy struggles to imagine any clear solution and almost breaks into tears when asking Rude what he intends to do. Rude thinks carefully before explaining his view. He insists that they need more allies on their side. For now, their priority should be gathering more information. His voice carries firm determination, revealing that what he wants most is to understand the truth of what is happening. To make this plan work, he tells Varys to search for someone who could help them. Curious, Varys studies the faint smile on Rude's face and wonders if directly questioning Lydersus would not be the simplest way. Rude agrees and says, let's first have a real conversation with Lydersus before deciding on the bigger moves, even if it means challenging Chevla or overturning the entire school. Rude begins searching for Lydersus and heads to the storage room where the boy often hides. To his surprise, the place is empty. What Rude does not realize is that at that same moment, Lidersis has been summoned to the principal's office. Inside, the head of the academy, a white-haired lady wearing a solemn robe, asks if he is having any trouble in his school life. Her tone is concerned, but the boy replies with denial, saying nothing is wrong. She pauses for a moment, then gently reminds him that she is a close acquaintance of his mother, Lady Daner, and he should feel free to share his worries. She also warns him that if he refuses to help himself, the school cannot help him either. Despite this kindness, Lidersis keeps the truth hidden, unwilling to open his heart. Meanwhile, life in the academy continues in its usual rhythm. Students walk in the corridors of Eden when an unexpected scene draws attention. Rude appears, openly searching for Lidersis. He asks if anyone has seen him, but the other students avoid his question, quickly fleeing from him. Whispers rise among them. They call him reckless for looking for Abomination and advise each other not to make eye contact with him. This growing hostility shows how isolated Rude is becoming. Just then, his classmate, the girl with white hair, steps forward and tells Rude that if he is looking for the Abomination, she believes he went to the storage room on the west side. She also mentions that he is carrying a magical box. Rude feels surprised that someone finally speaks to him instead of avoiding him, and he thanks her. The girl watches him leave, soon surrounded by classmates who praise her for her boldness. At that point, Rude suddenly turns back and walks toward her again. Everyone watches with shock. Standing before the girl, he calmly corrects her words. He tells her that the person he seeks is not a monster or an abomination, but his name is Lidersis. After that short correction, he turns and leaves once more. The girl stands thoughtful, unsure of what is so unusual about this boy, but deep down she finds him interesting. Rude continues his search, climbing onto a high rooftop to get a clear view of the path. He believes Lidersis will certainly pass that way if heading to the western storage room. A small fear rises inside him that perhaps Lidersis has already slipped past, but he decides to wait. Soon, the sight confirms his expectation. Lidersis appears, carrying a box exactly as the girl described. Rude prepares to call out to him but hesitates. He realizes that shouting from such a spot will also draw the attention of every student in the area. For a brief moment, he doubts whether he should do this. Then, remembering the earlier warning from Manhwa, he makes his choice. In a loud voice that echoes through the courtyard, he calls Lidersis's name. Everyone turns their eyes toward the sound. The boy with lowered gaze looks up and sees Rude waving at him with a smile, announcing that he is coming. The reaction is immediate. Lidersis begins to run, trying to escape once again from the unwanted pursuit. Rude stares in disbelief as he watches him run away, box clutched tightly in his hands. The memory of the rejection, the refusal of help, and the fear in Lidersis's eyes returns to Rude's mind. He realizes the boy is determined to avoid him at all costs. Tired of watching, Rude makes a dramatic move. He leaps from the roof, descending over 20 meters before landing with a steady stance. Gasps echo from nearby witnesses. Everyone seems startled. Determination shines in the eyes of Rude. If Lidersis wants to run, then he will chase him without hesitation. Lidersis hears the approaching voice calling out his name again and again. Each moment the sound grows nearer until he looks back and sees Rude rushing at him at full speed. The scene shocks the bystanders. Many cannot believe what they are seeing. Among them, a girl from Rude's class turns to her green-haired friend named Ren and nervously asks if she just has witnessed that guy jump down from all the way down there. The chase continues with both boys rushing through the academy grounds. The scenery blurs as they run with everything they have. Rude begins to close the gap, gaining little by little, while the students around them stop in surprise. Murmurs rise as everyone wonders what is happening and why the two are sprinting through the courtyard. In that moment, Rude realizes he has unintentionally turned into a spectacle for the entire academy. Rude decides to focus only on the boy in front of him. Lidersis is running with remarkable speed, surprising Rude, who struggles to keep up. Rude resolves that he must catch him first, but before his hand can touch the boy's shoulder, Lidersis reaches into the box he carries and touches one of the glowing spheres. The instant he makes contact with it, the mana inside bursts out and his speed increases sharply. The distance between them grows in an instant. Rude blinks in surprise, realizing that the boy has used magic to escape. Suddenly, one of the bouncing spheres slips out of the box and strikes Rude's forehead. The impact slows him down, and he can feel the light pain. Lidersis notices the accident just before leaping over a fence. He turns back for a brief moment, apologizing. For the first time, Rude hears his voice clearly. The sound only fuels his irritation. He tells Lidersis if he is really sorry, he should stop running. Lidersis tries to defend himself, explaining that the only reason he keeps running is because Rude continues chasing him. That excuse makes Rude even more annoyed, since the boy started fleeing first. Then Lidersis suddenly freezes as he looks downward. The sight before him shocks him deeply. At the bottom of the grounds, Shevla is standing with a group of students. The moment their eyes meet, Shevla glances upward, locking stares with Lidersis. Rude tries again to convince Lidersis to stop running, explaining that they only need to talk. Instead of agreement, Lidersis's tone changes. With fear and desperation, he demands distance, begging Rude not to come closer. The sharp terror in that voice stuns Rude. For a moment, he hesitates, realizing how much fear lies behind those words. Rude says he will keep his distance, but then quickly goes against his own words. Instead of moving back, he throws the same sphere that hit his forehead earlier. The ball smashes into the back of Lidersis's head, leaving a swollen bump. Lidersis turns, confused and startled. In that instant, Rude steps forward and seizes him by the collar. Rude challenges him, asking what he intends to do if someone stands this close. The closeness unsettles Lidersis, creating an awkward silence. Rude realizes the tension and quickly retreats a step, saying he only wanted to talk. But just then, from behind the fence, Shevla climbs up with a twisted grin. He steps directly onto Lidersis's back, pushing him down slightly, and leans over with mocking confidence. He glares at Rude and taunts him, questioning what he could possibly want to say to the so-called abomination. Before Shevla can finish his twisted statement, something unexpected happens. A force strikes him suddenly, sending him off balance. His body tips backward and he tumbles down the slope behind the fence. Lidersis stares in disbelief, unable to understand how it happened so quickly. Rude walks to the edge and looks down. He sees Shevla rolling and twisting before catching himself in a rough landing. Rude chuckles and mutters that the boy has such a bad habit, then adds that at least he landed well. Lidersis cannot believe what he sees, and the shock causes him to drop his box. The spheres scatter across the ground, bouncing in every direction. Rude turns back, preparing to suggest that they leave the area before more chaos begins. But then a strong hand grabs Rude's head from behind. Shevla has already climbed back up with frightening speed. He presses against Rude's skull, forcing him to look up. He glares at Rude with cruel fury. The malice in his expression sends a chilling signal. He tells Rude that he clearly does not value his own life, yet the protagonist remains calm. He looks straight into the eyes of Shevla without fear, declaring that he does want to live and asking him to remove his hand. The lack of panic only increases Shevla's irritation. He growls in anger, questioning how the boy dares to speak so boldly to him. Rude answers in his own way, mocking him by pretending to forget his full name. Just then, Rude grips his arm and pushes it away. He says he knows who Shevla is, a member of the High Heries family. Rage twists the face of Shevla, and his arm trembles as he realizes the boy before him has surprising strength. The ease with which Rude pushes his hand aside shakes his pride. He cannot believe that such a junior stand against him so firmly. Shevla quickly calls for his companion. Anna, who has been watching from below, tosses a necklace with a diamond-shaped stone. He catches it easily and raises it with confidence. He warns Rude that reckless behavior comes with a price. According to him, this is the perfect chance for the Eden boy to learn what punishment awaits those who act without respect. The glittering stone shines in his hand. Lidersis steps forward to shield Rude. Shevla holds the stone proudly and declares that he will show them the true power of a future great mage. The protagonist studies the object with curiosity. He recognizes that it is a high-level magical stone, something dangerous in untrained hands. Yet he wonders if Shevla truly has the ability to use it. While Shevla speaks with pride, Rude whispers to Lidersis, asking what they should do. Lidersis suggests calling a teacher to handle the situation. Rude nods at the idea and tries to hand over the responsibility, but Lidersis pushes it back to him. They keep telling each other to go and call the teacher, acting as if Shevla does not exist. The senior feels insulted, his anger burning stronger as they ignore him. He shouts, demanding that they realize the danger they are in. Shevla activates the stone. Mana swirls violently around him, and he chants a spell with loud authority. Rude hesitates, thinking it might be best to escape before things spiral too far. He considers pulling Lidersis away, but before he can move, the boy grips his shoulder firmly. Liderces speaks with an unexpectedly strong tone, insisting that Rude step back. He promises that he will handle it. The confidence in his words does not match his body. His knees tremble like a kitten left in the cold, yet he stands in front of Rude with determination. The protagonist watches in disbelief at such courage and fear mixed together. Chevla laughs at the scene, pretending to be touched, but quickly replaces the false emotion with fury. He tells Liderces that it has been a long time since he dared to speak nonsense in front of him. He smirks at the sight, mocking the boy for suddenly speaking up just because a rookie pays attention to him. Liderces gathers his courage, insisting that Rude has nothing to do with their conflict. He tries to release him from the fight, but Cheval pays no attention to those words. He moves faster than expected. In a sudden leap, he grabs Liderces by the face and slams him down into the ground. Dust scatters from the violent impact. Rude freezes for a moment, shocked at the sudden strike. Chevli crouches above Liderces with a smile full of malice. HR declares his intention to send the boy into an endless nightmare, one that would feel like hell itself. Fear fills the atmosphere, and in that exact moment, Liderces' mind slips into a memory. A vision returns. A young girl in a white dress walks gracefully through a garden. She bends down to pick up a flower, lifting it to her face to smell its fragrance. She turns with a soft smile, wanting to share the beauty with Liderces. Yet the image twists. Blood stains her face, covering her innocence with horror. Behind her rises a dark figure, a demon with glowing red eyes, bringing nothing but terror. The shadow looms closer, preparing to consume everything. Liderces returns to reality, screaming with desperation, and his terrified plea echoes, and for a moment Chevla loses focus. Rude launches himself forward and drives his elbow hard into the neck of Chevla. The impact throws the senior aside, loosening his grip on Liderces. Rude quickly kneels beside the fallen boy, checking if he is conscious. Chevla rises slowly, fury burning in his eyes. He demands to know how the rookie dares to interfere. Rude, however, turns cold. He questions whether Chevla has done something to Liderces. Chevla answers with cruel calmness. He explains that he has only reminded the so-called monster of what he had forgotten. He steps closer with a smile that hides poison. He says that a monster who does not know his place must be punished. Then he tells Rude that he also does not know his place, so both of them will face the same punishment. With arrogance, Chevla asks whether Rude carries any memory he does not wish to recall or a fear he has never overcome. He claims he can show something worse than either. The tone makes Rude wonder silently if Chevla is using illusion magic. If that is true, then perhaps the strange incident in the library, when Liderces turned into a monster, had been an illusion caused by Chevla. Rude does not respond, which only feeds Chevla's pride. He grows more arrogant, believing he now has full control. Rude, however, looks at him coldly and thinks to himself whether he should simply end this nonsense here and now. Before he can act, a strong, scolding voice cuts through the courtyard. It is Professor Khan, demanding that Chevla stop at once. Chevla clicks his tongue in annoyance. He glares at Rude one last time and mutters that today is simply the boy's lucky day. Professor Khan steps forward, checking first on Liderces and then on Rude, who pretends to faint the moment he sees the professor. Khan scolds Chevla harshly for his reckless actions. Rude feels disappointed that he has lost the chance to challenge Chevla further, but his mind lingers on the mystery. He wonders once again about the meaning behind Liderces being a monster. The next day, curiosity spread quickly through the academy. A group of students sneak near the office of the secretary, hoping to overhear details about the incident. Inside, Rude sits with his usual serious face, answering questions. A teacher asks whether it is true he jumped from a balcony. Rude quickly denies it. The teacher asks again about him running across campus with the Ardian, and Rude lies without hesitation, claiming that nothing like that ever happened. The professor smiles gently, saying he believed as much. Students listening outside cannot believe their professor fell for such an obvious lie. In reality, the professor is fully aware of Rude's fragile history. He remembers that the boy joined the academy 1 month later than others because of his long illness. With such a weak body, it should be impossible for him to run wildly across campus. Rude himself is shocked when the professor makes this excuse on his behalf, because he had almost forgotten about the fake identity he carried into the school. The teacher advises him to take care of his health, warning that his condition could worsen again. He also reminds him that making enemies with seniors while still in Eden could damage his school life. Rude accepts the warning, though he feels unsettled about how little progress he has made in truly talking with Liderces. Walking down the corridor, Rude suddenly collides with Varys, who rushes toward him in a panic. The blue-haired boy grabs his shoulders and demands to know what happened. He asks whether the rumors about Rude facing Chevla are true. Rude nods, admitting that he did meet him. Varys, shocked, pushes further and mentions that people claim Rude was beaten by Chevley while playing around with Lydersis. Concern flashes across his face, and he asks whether Rude is injured. Rude lowers his head and says he is fine, but Lydersis is not. The heavy silence that follows makes Varys think that Lydersis is dead. Rude frowns and replies firmly that of course he is alive, otherwise the school would not be this calm. Rude changes the subject and insists they need to visit Lydersis. The two head toward the storage room, since the infirmary has already discharged him. Varys wonders aloud whether they should simply wait in class, but Rude continues forward. Inside the storage room, they hear a faint noise. Following the sound, they discover Lydersis sitting quietly among the boxes. Varys hides behind Rude, who steps forward and asks him gently what he is doing there. Lydersis remains silent, ignoring the question. Rude sits beside him and offers a piece of candy, trying to lighten the mood. He tells him to forget about the rumors of being a monster and asks directly why Chevley uses that word against him. Lydersis lowers his head and mutters that it is none of Rude's business. He insists that others calling him a monster have nothing to do with anyone else. He pleads for Rude to stop caring about him and to stay away. Rude stands slowly and asks if Lydersis really plans to live like this, letting everyone call him a monster. With his head still lowered, Lydersis admits in a quiet voice that he truly is one. Rude, however, extends his hand and again offers the candy, insisting that if no one tells him the truth, then he will simply ask Chevley directly. Shocked, Lydersis stares at him. Rude smiles and explains that it is only his personal curiosity, and it has nothing to do with anyone else. Lydersis is left speechless, his own words used against him. Later that evening in the senior building, Chevley receives the report he ordered. He learns that Rude's name is Rude Creasy, and that he entered school late because of illness. Supposedly, his body has been fragile since childhood. Chevley remembers the strength and defiance he saw yesterday and frowns at the contradiction. The informant continues, revealing that Rude shares a room with the so-called monster, Lydersis, and is often seen with Varys, his classmate. Most shocking of all, Rude was the first student in history to achieve a perfect score on the entrance exam. Chevley sneers at the news. He mocks the idea that such results justify Rude's behavior, saying it explains his arrogance. When asked what should be done, Chevley replies coldly that the solution is simple. Make Rude crawl back to where he belongs. Unknown to them, dark energy seeps from the monostone necklace resting on his desk. The energy stretches out and forms the shape of a human shadow, which watches them for a moment before vanishing. Not far away, Lady Tessiana, the young woman with purple hair, senses the energy of a human fading behind the trees. She knows she saw something and feels uneasy. But her thoughts are cut off when the cheerful little princess, sitting nearby with her butler, keeps calling her name while playing carelessly at the tea table. She stacks cookies and laughs, calling Tessie. The butler, Rom, corrects her gently, saying, "Princess, it is not appropriate to use that nickname." The princess pouts and argues that he should not call her princess here. She wants to be treated like any other girl. Rom points out that she also calls Knight Tessiana Tessie. The princess replies that it is because Tessie is Tessie. Rom then reminds her firmly that here she is Professor Rowell, not Tessie. Night falls over the academy, and Rude receives a call through his transmission crystal. On the other end, his master asks about his new school life, wondering if he has already made friends. Rude calmly reminds him that friendship is not his purpose at Eden. He recalls how their client wanted him to help Lydersis, but explains that Lydersis himself rejected the idea. The boy told him to stop paying attention, to leave him alone, and admitted that he hated himself. Rude believes he cannot do anything for someone who refuses help. The master listens and then questions Rude about his belief, asking if he really thinks Lydersis does not want help. Rude reflects and shares what he observed. It seems unnatural, almost as if everyone around Lydersis is hypnotized. They call him a monster and isolate him. In his opinion, this influence comes from Chevley von Hadelio. When the name is mentioned, the master appears confused. Rude asks if he truly does not know the boy. The master calmly explains that he knows the Hadelio family well. They are a noble family of powerful mages, and their current head, Marquis Hadelio, still plays an important role among nobles in the capital. The master raises the possibility that the conflict between Chevley and Lydersis may be rooted in the rivalry between the Hadelio family and Duke Artian's family. The two houses are known for long-standing hostility. Rude, however, feels that what is happening goes beyond rivalry. It looks like a one-sided persecution. The master wonders if Lydersis had provoked Chevley in some personal way, such as stealing a lover or something precious. Rude sighs, saying he wishes it were that simple. The master then assures Rude that he will investigate the families further. Before ending the call, he advises Rude not to carry this burden too seriously. The client is important, but he insists that Rude should enjoy his school days, build friendships, and live as a normal student. Rude frowns, ready to cut the connection. The master tries to stop him, but Rude closes the crystal and heads back to his room. Knowledge of the noble families now deepens his curiosity. He decides to observe carefully before taking any steps. Far away, by the sea, another story unfolds. Waves crash against cliffs where a lonely house hides among trees. A man climbs the outer wall and reaches the balcony, his clothes wet from the ocean. He has different colored eyes and a tattoo on his face. With irritation, he wonders why Ruby Monterre chose this place to live, claiming she clearly does not know what she is doing. He touches the door and passes through a magical barrier. Then, with a playful smile, he introduces himself as Elzebub and calls out for Ruby in an affectionate tone. To his surprise, inside, there is a monstrous fish creature lying and reading. Ruby is not present, and the fish explains she stepped out. Elzebub complains about the dull atmosphere and tells the fish that he should use his human form just as Ruby told him, instead of remaining in that strange body. The fish mutters that he tried but finds it too uncomfortable. Understanding his frustration, Elzebub grabs the creature by the tail and drags him toward the window. With mock cheer, he declares that as a colleague, he must help him feel better. He then throws the fish out. The fish falls into the sea with a huge splash, and from the waves he rises in a half-human form, furious at Elzebub. Their banter continues, full of irritation and teasing. Just then, a young girl with small horns lands on the highest pillar of the house. She frowns and tells the others to behave, reminding them of their mission. She then takes a stack of documents. On the cover is written, "Infiltration Success at Helios Magic Academy." Back inside the academy, life seems normal, but Professor Khan is searching for Professor Rowell, and instead he comes across Professor Hale. Khan asks if Hale has seen Rowell, but the answer is no. Scratching his neck, Khan grows frustrated. Looking closer, he notices the vast magical circle on the floor, filled with enchantments. Khan becomes impressed and remarks that this is the teleportation circle that will be used for the field training of Eden. He exclaims that it looks very complex and asks if Hale created it. Hale confirms calmly. Khan then comments that he heard the circle will be connected to the tower this time, and becomes excited, saying it will be amazing with this teleportation circle. Professor Hale finishes his inspection of the teleportation circle with a satisfied smile. He reminds Professor Khan that since this is the first field training of the year, every precaution must be taken to avoid accidents. Khan is impressed and praises Hale as a true master of teleportation circles. In another part of the academy, Varys drops a notebook on the table where Rude is sitting. Silent at first, Rude asks what it contains, and Varys proudly declares that it is valuable information he has collected with great effort. Though the book looks small, Rude flips through it and finds many testimonies gathered in a single day. He admits it is impressive, though Varys admits the task was difficult since most people avoided him. Curious, Rude asks whether the people interviewed are strong enough to confront Shevla. Varys explains his method, saying he began with nobles and top students. Rude stares at him in surprise, but Varys defends his approach, insisting he worked hard. Varys points to two specific names in his notebook, declaring that these individuals could become allies. The first name is Maria Canciel, a princess of the imperial family and the only royal student at Helios. Varys explains that she enjoys special treatment, always escorted by a guard from the castle, and untouchable even by professors. If she joins the Ardean, even Shevli will be powerless. Realizing he is speaking too loudly, Varys shrinks back nervously. Students across the room glare at him, whispering that Rude and his friends are plotting something again. They complain that ever since Rude arrived, peace has disappeared. Some call Lydersis a monster, insisting that everyone is being dragged into trouble without reason due to him. On the other side of the room, two girls react with disbelief, saying that if Lydersis were not treated like a monster, people would beg for his friendship. One girl asks Ren if she feels the same. Ren, staring at Rude, nods before quickly looking away when he notices her. Rude ignores the looks and asks Varys about the second name. Varys reveals Lapis Yuan Nuadli, the only heir of the Nuadli Duchy. Despite being the son of a duke like Artian, his status is greater since he is the sole successor. Varys adds that Lapis Yuan and Chevle joined Helios at the same time, but share a hostile relationship, although now they simply ignore each other. Rude becomes interested, thinking Yuan would be easy to approach, especially since he already dislikes Chevle. Varys agrees but points out a problem. Yuan has never been promoted from Eden since arriving at the academy. Rude cannot believe it and asks why. Varys explains that Yuan excels in theory and academics, but is weak in practical combat. Still, Varys says Yuen is useful because of his noble status, his popularity, and his hatred for Chevle. Rude acknowledges his effort and praises him despite realizing the search had limits. Varys admits he had hoped to find strong candidates among the students of higher divisions, but their isolation makes it almost impossible. While they talk, 2 senior students enter and knock on the board to silence the room. They are the minions of Chevle from Clad. Students whisper among themselves, wondering why Clad members are here. The 2 deliver a message on behalf of Professor Uvinos that there will be no scheduled lesson for today, and the class must go to the Eastern Lecture Hall to prepare for practical training. The announcement creates unease, and Rude looks around, noticing suspicious glances. He also notices Lidursis is missing and wonders where he has gone. Outside, Lidursis faces humiliation. A bucket of water is poured over him as he lies on the ground. The group taunts him, mocking that the wet rat appearance suits him well. They warn him not to think his situation will change just because Rude and Varys are by his side. At that moment, Manon steps in. He tells them to calm down. He says today's focus should not be on harassing Lidursis. Just then, another student comes and whispers to him. Manon smirks and orders others to bring Lidursis, adding that the stage is ready. Elsewhere, Rude and Varys continue searching. Varys urges Rude to stop since they already checked the dormitories, storerooms, and gardens. He points out they are now late for class and begs to go before their grades suffer. Rude reluctantly agrees but remains uneasy, convinced something is wrong. In the Eastern Lecture Hall, students gather in confusion. The professor is not there, and students from Clad are standing on the stage. Manon looks around the room and asks if everyone is present. One of his followers confirms. Manon then smirks and says, since they have gathered all the main characters, they should begin. Meanwhile, Professor Uvinos wonders in another room why nobody has shown up for his scheduled class. Varys slips through the plants outside the locked hall with Rude close behind him. He questions why a simple class requires doors to be sealed, but Rude finds it stranger that Varys already knows of a hidden entrance. A small hatch lies at the base of the wall, barely wide enough for them to crawl through. Inside, the 2 hear sounds of carts being moved. On the stage, Manon oversees his subordinates as they push forward carts filled with glowing spheres. He picks one up and explains that before any student officially becomes a mage, they must learn how to use mana spheres, since direct magic use is not allowed without them. The lesson is presented as a test of skill. The sphere glows when filled with mana, its brightness showing the strength of the caster. He tells Edens, who are new to such training, that their changes will be small. The class listens in silence, but confusion grows when a student nervously asks whether the professor is aware of this lesson. Manon frowns, and his group quickly surrounds the boy. In moments, the student vanishes from sight, swallowed by the circle of seniors. No one dares to speak after witnessing it. Manon continues with a smirk. He announces that to make the test more exciting, a target has been prepared. Lidursis is dragged into the center of the hall, tied to a wooden frame. The students freeze in horror when they realize the intention is to aim the mana spheres at him. Manon, with mocking calmness, remarks that anyone who strikes the head will receive extra points. The command is followed by the snapping of his fingers, and soon the orbs are scattered at the feet of the Eden students. The silence in the hall grows heavy. Nobody dares to move until a senior steps forward, asking who will be first. When no one volunteers, he points directly at a timid girl. Panic fills her face as she shakes her head, whispering that she cannot do such a thing. The senior sneers and asks if she would prefer to take the place of the Tide monster. Fear breaks her resistance, and trembling, she picks up a sphere. Her hands shake so badly that the light inside the orb barely flickers. The senior tells her that since she is the first, even a weak attempt will earn high marks if she at least manages to strike the target. She closes her eyes and throws with all the courage she can summon, but the sphere drops weakly to the floor, far from Lidursis. The failure irritates the seniors. One of them picks up an orb, infuses it with strong mana, and throws it with force. The sphere slams onto the head of Lidursis, glowing brightly. The students gasp in fear, understanding that resistance will not be tolerated. The senior claps mockingly and warns the class that this is what is expected. He demands to know who will step forward next, his eyes sweeping the rows with sharp intensity. Behind the plants near the hatch, Varys watches all this happening in despair. He tells Rude that they must leave immediately to find a professor before this escalates further. Yet when he turns, Rude is no longer by his side. Panic fills him as he realizes he has lost track of his companion. Back in the hall, someone raises a hand among the Eden students, and the seniors stop to see who dares. To their surprise, it is Rude, stepping forward. Calm yet determined, he announces that he will try next. Silence spreads across the room, leaving students, seniors, and even Lidursis stunned. None of them expect such confidence from him. Manon narrows his eyes, irritated yet curious about this unexpected move. Everyone wonders why Rude, who always stays close to Lidersis, chooses to join in this cruel exercise. Despite the confusion, one senior gestures for him to proceed, intrigued to see what he can do. Rude calmly picks up one of the glowing spheres and walks past the rows of frightened students. The senior repeats the instructions, reminding him that the aim is to strike the so-called monster. Yet before the explanation even finishes, the hall shakes with surprise. A massive hole now marks the stone target just a breath away from the head of Lidersis. The crowd gasps. The Eden students stare wide-eyed. Varys, hidden in the shadows of the passage, feels speechless at the sight. Lidersis exhales heavily, both relieved and unsettled, knowing how close the sphere came. Rude crouches, annoyed, muttering that he missed the proper spot. Manon remains frozen, unable to process what he has witnessed. The power displayed far surpasses anything he imagined possible from a new Eden. Lidersis, dizzy from the impact, slowly steadies himself. Rude then picks up another sphere and casually asks if he can try again. This time, he claims the right target will be hit. Mana flows strongly into the orb, and the dark green color almost fades into pure white. The energy becomes so intense that cracks appear along the sphere's surface. Before anyone can react, it crumbles into dust in Rude's hand. He laughs lightly, saying the sphere must have been defective, and reaches for another one without hesitation. Lidersis realizes the danger instantly. If a strike of that strength truly hits him, survival will be impossible. He trembles as Rude walks forward with steady steps. The young Eden locks eyes with him and states in a calm tone that if he wishes to avoid harm, he should dodge. The next throw erupts with terrifying speed, soaring toward the stage. Lidersis braces himself, teeth clenched, preparing for pain. Yet at the last moment, the sphere curves and crashes against the senior standing beside him. The man collapses instantly, steam rising faintly from his forehead. The hall descends into chaos. Students gasp in horror. Lidersis stares in disbelief, realizing Rude deliberately avoided striking him. Rude then apologizes mockingly, claiming he must have missed again. He smirks and taunts the fainted senior, asking why he simply stood still, adding that such dullness made things boring. Varys, still hidden, murmurs to himself in awe that this boy is clearly not ordinary. The Eden students exchange whispers of shock, questioning who Rude really is. Manon, however, is consumed with rage and confusion. He cannot understand how the mana sphere from Rude not only pierced the target, but produced a near-perfect color that only the most gifted mages ever manifest. While his own attempts had left only scratches, this Eden displayed a brilliance close to white. To him, the only explanation is that Rude is cheating somehow. Otherwise, the sight defies logic. Ignoring every pair of eyes on him, Rude brushes dirt from his clothes with annoyance, complaining that the target is broken and shifted off-center. He suggests they find a new one, though instead of pointing at a wooden dummy, he casually looks around the group of seniors. With a sharp smile, he proposes that perhaps the real target should be one of those who arranged this cruel exercise. He then stares at Manon and says, maybe it would be more interesting if the person who created this special class became the target instead. Manon grits his teeth, fury burning in his eyes. He shouts loudly that if a new target is needed, then it will be Rude himself. He points with rage and commands his group to capture the insolent boy at once. The order echoes through the hall, and the seniors begin to advance. At that critical moment, Varys prepares to act. He knows he cannot stay hidden any longer, but before he can even move, strong hands grab his collar from behind. Turning in shock, he sees the familiar face of a woman with blue hair and eyes as deep as the sea. The sight freezes him instantly. It is Professor Rowell. Varys feels immense relief when he sees Professor Rowell appear. In his nervous state, he tries to tell her about the clads, but she silences him immediately, ordering him to stay quiet. The professor walks past him calmly, and Varys becomes more confused when he realizes she is hiding instead of intervening. He whispers a question, asking why she is doing that, and Rowell simply gives a short answer, saying she is only watching. Shock strikes him as he cannot believe she chooses to stay in the shadows. He tries to argue, but she covers his mouth with her hand, keeping him silent. Rowell has no intention of stepping in. On the stage, the senior who had first demonstrated earlier is suddenly hit by a powerful mana sphere. He cannot defend himself and collapses unconscious within moments. The hall grows tense as Rude stands boldly, having thrown the sphere with shocking ease. This becomes his second target, and he shows no sign of slowing down. The seniors panic and rush to surround him. They hope to keep him under control by holding his arms and stopping him from grabbing more spheres. One manages to immobilize his arms for a moment and begins to boast, but the confidence disappears instantly when Rude slams his fist into the senior's chin. Another student clutches Rude's shirt, but the response is brutal. Rude seizes the boy's arm, twists it with force, and before the student can react, Rude smashes the sole of his shoe into his face. That throws the second senior down to the ground. The third one, frozen in shock, fails to maintain his grip. Rude turns to him and casually remarks for the boy to excuse himself, breaking his daze. Terrified, the student stumbles back, raising his hands in surrender. Edens watch with disbelief. None can understand how Rude displays such strength. Manon, still standing on stage, grits his teeth with anger. He realizes the situation has turned against him, but he refuses to back down. Rage burns inside him, and he calls one of his subordinates and demands real magic orbs, not the experimental ones scattered on the floor. The subordinate nervously replies that only the test versions had been prepared. This only fuels his frustration, but unwilling to retreat, Manon snatches one of the experimental spheres and declares that Rude will be the next target. Manon infuses his mana into the sphere and hurls it with all his might, aiming directly at Rude's face. He wants to destroy the boy's arrogant confidence. Yet something unexpected happens. Lidersis suddenly moves in front of Rude, taking the attack himself. The sphere strikes him hard, leaving Rude both surprised and slightly annoyed. He demands to know why Lidersis stepped in front, questioning why he would take the hit instead of letting it strike its intended target. Even Manon is shocked by this act. He never expected the one he labeled a monster to protect another student. His rage grows and he shouts at the others, demanding that they stop standing around and start throwing their spheres. He declares that both Rude and Lidersis are now the targets. Despite the chaos, Rude ignores Manon completely. He turns to Lidersis with concern and asks if he is all right. Meanwhile, the Clads begin charging their spheres with mana, preparing to attack. Rude looks at Lidersis again and makes a cut remark, asking if taking hits has become some kind of hobby or something he enjoys. Lidersis, shocked by the accusation, immediately denies it. Rude sighs in relief, but presses further, insisting that if it is not true, then there was no reason for Lidersis to block the attack. He reminds him that Lidersis once told him not to care about his fate, so it would only be fair if Lidersis also stopped caring about him. Lowering his head, Lidersis feels guilt washing over him. He cannot shake the thought that the whole mess is his fault and admits to himself that he does not want anyone else to suffer because of him. Before the discussion can continue, one of the spheres is launched at them. Rude reacts instantly, pushing Lidersis aside. The glowing sphere rushes toward him, but he catches it with his bare hands. The hall falls into silence as everyone sees him stop the attack with ease. Lidersis stares at him in shock, unable to process what he just witnessed. Rude looks at him with calm eyes and tells him firmly that none of this is his fault. He then turns his attention to the student who had thrown the sphere, pours his own mana into the ball he now holds, and makes a clear declaration. He states that what he hates most are people like them. Clad seniors, furious at their fallen companions, grab mana spheres and prepare to throw them. Before a pair can act, one is already struck down. On the other hand, Rude dodges a sphere, mocking the seniors in his mind, thinking how careless they are. He quickly picks up a small orb, ignores the projectiles flying around him, and hits another senior with sharp precision. One sphere nearly collides with him, but he catches it mid-air, hurls it back, and knocks a third opponent unconscious. Another student clenches his teeth in frustration, only to realize too late that a sphere is coming directly at him. In moments, Rude has taken down 4 enemies and wonders how many remain. Rude turns toward Lidersis. The boy stands motionless, with hands tied behind his back, taking blows from spheres while students from Eden hide behind him. Instead of running, he acts as a shield. Fear spreads among the students, yet they are surprised by his quiet endurance. Ren notices blood trickling from him and realizes he is truly hurt. She tries to approach, but he refuses her help and does not let her come near. Even so, Ren steps behind him with determination to untie his hands. Her friend watches in disbelief, worried about the punishment Ren may face. Even so, Ren apologizes to Lidersis softly. Lidersis listens in silence, conflicted as guilt presses on his heart. The fight rages on. A glowing sphere flies across the hall, hitting a senior in the back as he tries to flee. Rude counts 12 who are already down, and his eyes are focused on the last enemies. Only 3 remain, Manon and his 2 closest subordinates. Manon grits his teeth, sweat dripping as Rude's calm stare fixes on him. Everywhere around him, his allies lie fallen. Dread seeps into his heart, and he begins to wonder if this nightmare is real. Step by step, Rude advances, smiling faintly when he reaches the stage and asks if the fight should continue. Meanwhile, Lidersis, freed from his ropes, stands deep in thought. Ren struggles to find the right words to explain herself when her friend grabs her arm and urges her to return. Turning, she notices the wary looks of her classmates, but she refuses to yield. Facing them, she bursts out in protest, demanding to know how long they plan to keep treating Lidursus as a monster. The students hesitate, guilt flashing across their faces, but none dare speak. Ren, however, does not stop. She admits her own weakness, saying she is not good at anything, but insists that this cruelty is wrong. Lidursus, who has endured endless humiliation, stares in shock as the girl defends him with such passion. Even Ren's closest friend never expected her to be so bold. She continues, saying she does not care how brilliant the students of Harris or Clad may be, because Eden should not allow themselves to be trampled by others. Before she can finish, movement draws everyone's attention. A body falls heavily to the ground. One of Manon's subordinates lies unconscious, struck down without warning. All eyes turn to the stage where Rude now stands, having already defeated both minions, and his gaze is now fixed coldly on the trembling leader. Manon, furious and desperate, tries to intimidate him. He declares that standing against Clad is pointless, warning that Chevla will surely punish both Rude and the so-called monster. Rude breathes out with weariness and steps closer. He speaks not with anger, but with sharp conviction, dismissing the constant use of the word monster. He explains that the world always has people who are powerless or mistreated, unable to fight back, and others who gather together only to abuse the weak. He then asks which of these groups deserves to be called the real monsters. Silence covers the room, every student frozen by the weight of the words. Rude provides the answer himself, pointing directly at Manon. In that moment, he declares that the true monsters are them. The next instant, Rude hears Varys's hurried call behind him and turns just in time to see a glowing sphere speeding his way. He tilts forward, letting the attack fly past. Instead of him, the sphere strikes Manon directly. The impact crashes against his forehead, and he collapses heavily, like a tree falling under an axe. Shock spreads through the room. Rude did not expect such an attack, nor did Lidursus or Ren. Confused, Rude looks toward the direction the sphere came from and instantly recognizes the clothing of the figure stepping forward. Professor Rowell is here. Ignoring Varys completely, Professor Rowell climbs onto the stage and approaches Rude. He recalls seeing her at the auction when she fought Shikmaun with him, never realizing she was also a teacher at Helios Academy. Students whisper among themselves, surprised to see that she was the one who attacked. Relief washes over them, believing her intervention means safety. Yet Rowell seems focused on Rude. She asks him why he dodged, pointing out that he could have stopped the sphere with ease. Holding another orb, she remarks that there is no fun in dodging. Rowell gives a clear order to Rude, instructing him not to dodge this time because she is curious about his limits. Rude protests softly, trying to dissuade her, but her expression reveals no intention of backing down. Just when she prepares to throw, the hall doors burst open. Professor Hale, Professor Khan, and Professor Uvino storms in, furious, demanding to know what chaos is happening. Rowell is still clutching the orb. Khan surveys the wreckage, damaged targets, unconscious bodies, dizzy students sprawled across the floor, and immediately assumes Rowell is responsible. He holds his head in frustration, unable to believe a fellow teacher would do this. Rowell responds with indifference, asking what he wants. Khan, startled, asks whether she caused all this destruction. Varys puts his hands on his head in despair, sensing the trouble deepening. Yet he remembers to check on Rude. Turning to the stage, he sees him lying motionless on the floor, pretending he is unconscious. The professors step forward, and Hale orders the medical team summoned. Those still unhurt are told to return to their classrooms. Before leaving, Rowell glances one last time at Rude, her expression unreadable. Time passes, and the academy regains its calm. Yet within Eden, tension lingers. Students gather, watching a confrontation unfold. Lapis is arguing with a boy. He tells him that people are staring because of him. He demands the boy leave and return to his own territory. The boy replies that the entire academy belongs to them all and shifts the conversation. He recalls seeing a small whoopee and laughs at the idea that such a cute creature could become a mid-level monster. Lapis snaps and asks if he is here to brag about his private training in front of him. The young boy pushes Lapis to talk about the time he met the Black Mage. Lapis grows irritated and says it was nothing special, just a chance meeting. But the young man keeps asking for more. His personality, his habits, his clothes, even his favorite food. Lapis questions why he is so obsessed. The young man admits it openly. Becoming like the Black Mage has always been his dream. He explains that he tried to meet him through Ophion, but the mage's master blocked every attempt. Lapis grows more frustrated as his friend insists, even saying he envies him for meeting the Black Mage, even if it was only once by chance. Lapis recalls the memory vividly. That night in the forest, under the faint glow of fireflies, he saw Ren sigh with worry. She whispered about how bad the situation at the auction had become and said she needed to report to her master. She then asked the Black Mage if he was hurt. Beside her, the Black Mage stood calm and cold and told her he was fine. When they prepared to leave, Lapis acted with sudden courage. He stepped in their way and set aside his pride, making a desperate request. With a trembling voice, he asked the Black Mage to train him. Bowing deeply, he declared his wish to become his disciple and promised to devote himself fully so as not to bring shame to his name. Ren answered firmly on behalf of her companion, rejecting the request. She explained that members of their group followed strict rules and were forbidden from taking disciples. The Black Mage, who stood nearby, questioned her words, but she silenced him discreetly. Lapis never realized she was lying. Shame filled him, and even later he could not explain why he had made such a humiliating plea. Back in the present, Linus, the boy with Lapis, notices a small commotion rises and realizes it is Chevley. Excited, he quickly waves and urges Lapis to do the same. Chevley looks their way and mocks Linus for still spending time with an eternal Eden student, saying he is stooping very low. Lapis refuses to accept the insult and counters that it is more disgraceful to waste time on childish power games, questioning who is truly stooping low. Linus finds the exchange amusing and laughs. Chevley, clearly annoyed, calls Anna and the others to leave, warning them not to get involved with pathetic people. The remark stings Lapis, who mutters in frustration about who truly deserves to be called pathetic and wonders how long Chevley intends to live this way. Linus teases him by asking if he is worried about Chevley, while Anna observes silently. Far from there, in a quiet room, professors are gathered. Khan coughs lightly before speaking, pointing out that the damage to the training target and the defeat of so many intermediate students appears to be the work of one person. He asks if this is really true. All eyes fall on Rude, seated before them. Rude, troubled, lowers his head and claims ignorance, saying he has no idea what they are talking about. Professor Rowell challenges his words directly, asking if he is a mage. Lidursis reacts with shock at hearing her suspicion, while Rude keeps silent and avoids the question. Khan dismisses the claim, calling it nonsense. He argues that if Chrissy were truly a mage, he would not behave like this. Rude hides his expression, wondering inwardly if he had acted carelessly, yet he reminds himself that he never used even a trace of mana. Rowell studies him carefully, surprised by his calm deception. Suddenly, Rude groans and staggers in his chair, clutching his head and claiming it hurts. Khan rises at once, concerned, urging him to go to the infirmary for examination. Rowell remains unmoved, saying firmly that the boy is fine. Khan protests, reminding her that earlier she carried him in when he fainted. Rude puts up a weak performance, saying he was only shocked by the sphere and remembers nothing more. Rowell grows angry, accusing him of lying, but Rude continues the act, sighing and feigning weakness. Khan decides to end the argument and shifts the discussion. He informs them that Professor Hale will handle punishment for the Eden students responsible for the incident. Until then, both Rude and Lidursis should rest. Relief touches Rude at this unexpected outcome, surprised that no heavier punishment falls on him. Yet he notices Rowell's sharp stare fixed on him, a silent warning that she will not let the matter go so easily. Outside, the clad students stand with bandages covering their bodies. Chevla walks up to them, puzzled by their shaken faces. He confronts them and asks what happened. They stay silent, their fear holding back any words. Their frightened eyes reveal more than they dare to speak. Just then, Rude and Lidursis come out of the academy office. Chevla spots them right away. Lidursis freezes when their eyes meet, while Rude, walking beside him, gives Chevla a quick glance. A faint smile curves on his lips, calm and unbothered. Chevla's blood boils at the sight. Lidursis hesitates, but Rude deliberately calls his name and tells him to keep moving. The two walk away, leaving Chevley trembling with silent rage. Lidursis glances back one last time, then follows Rude through the academy corridors. Chevley keeps his eyes on them, his frown growing darker as he watches the two Eden boys walk away together. They continue walking quietly until Lidursis suddenly stops. Rude turns back, puzzled, and sees the boy standing with his head lowered. Lidursis confesses his worry that from this point forward, more troubles will follow because of him. His hand trembles as he clenches it tight, fighting an inner voice that says he only brings misery to everyone. He mutters bitterly that he will bring misery to Rude too. Annoyance sparks in Rude. He strides over and confronts him directly, asking if he is cursing him. He reminds him of the earlier fight, pointing out that even if 100 of those students attacked, no one could truly harm him. He insists that none of it is Lidursis' fault. In a sharp tone, he scolds him like a father lecturing a child, telling him to stop worrying about others and instead learn to protect himself, because a gentle heart cannot survive in such a cruel world. Lidursis lowers his eyes and insists Rude does not understand anything. Rude admits that might be true, yet he also knows that Lidersis is hiding something. He decides not to press, saying he will not ask about secrets, but instructs him firmly to rely on him instead of pushing him away. He tells him clearly to ask for help and not to tell him to ignore it. Whatever the problem is, he will help. Confused by the offer, Lidersis struggles to accept it. He does not want to be a burden, so he refuses, saying he does not need help. Rude remarks that if this is how Lidersis chooses to be, then he understands. Fear pushes Lidersis back a step. Panicked, he turns and runs. Rude quickly follows, not willing to let him get away. Meanwhile, inside the Eden classroom, tension spreads like smoke. Students sit in unease, whispering about the consequences of the earlier events. One girl nervously asks what will happen to them now, and another replies that punishment is certain for the Clads, but even Eden might be dragged into the matter. A third voice shouts angrily that all of this began because of the so-called monster among them. She claims that if he did not exist, none of this would have happened. Agreement rises among some, resentment turning toward Lidersis. They recall how students from other classes avoided them like insects after the incident. Fear leads to desperate ideas. A student suggests asking teachers to transfer them into other classrooms to escape the shadow of the problem. Varys, listening quietly, tries to resist this suggestion. Suddenly, Ren stands up with fire in her voice. She scolds them for being selfish, asking why they only think of their own safety and not of the person they all abandon. She asks why they feel pain when ignored themselves, but still call Lidersis a monster without shame. Her words silence them, heads lower, because they know she speaks the truth. Still, her argument meets resistance. Another student reminds them of what happened in the library, when horns appeared above the head of Lidersis and dark energy surrounded him. The memory of that day fills them with fear again. They recall Lidersis turning into a monster and Cheval glaring down at the boy. Ren hesitates, speechless, but an unexpected voice joins in. The silver-haired girl, Eiley, closes her book and speaks. She claims that what they saw could have been illusion magic, reminding them that Cheval is a specialist in such spells, and that Clad students own many orbs capable of showing false images. She argues that if something were truly wrong with Lidersis, the Academy would never allow him to remain enrolled. She accuses them of being blinded by fear instead of thinking rationally. Her words spark argument, but she holds her ground, saying they are only scared by the trick Chevely showed them. Another student lashes back, accusing her of being no different before, also treating Lidersis as a monster. The girl does not deny her past, but replies that circumstances have changed. She believes that with Rude on their side, the situation can be turned around. Even Ren looks at her in surprise, moved by her sudden courage. Then the door opens. Lidersis walks in slowly, his hair covering his eyes and casting a shadow that makes some students uneasy. Fear makes them flinch. Rude comes in behind him and gets confused, feeling the heavy mood in the room. Varys hurries to Rude, worried, and asks if everything is fine. Rude admits to feeling dizzy, but Varys clarifies that he is asking about the situation with the Clads. He presses further, wanting to know what the professor said. Rude explains that they said very little and simply sent them away. Lidersis tries to slip off quietly, but Rude catches his shirt from behind, refusing to let him run away. At that moment, a voice calls out to him. Eiley at first blurts out the word monster, but quickly corrects herself and uses his name, Lidersis. The boy looks at her, surprised by the acknowledgement. Eiley steps forward, extends her hands to both of them, and introduces herself formally as Eiley Florin Chrome. Soon another student named Noidine approaches with a friendly smile, saying it is not too late to get along. Slowly, more students from the class gather around Rude and Lidersis, surrounding them with warm energy. They begin introducing themselves and bombarding Rude with questions, especially about how he managed to defeat the Clads earlier. For the first time, the atmosphere shifts toward acceptance, yet two students stay apart, clearly unwilling to be part of this change. Amid the introductions, a boy and a girl approach Lidersis directly. With sincerity, they thank him for protecting them from a magic orb during the fight. Rude notices the exchange, watching how the fear and suspicion that once surrounded Lidersis begins to fade. He smiles quietly to himself, thinking that this is going better than expected. A small change is beginning to take root. Elsewhere, in the infirmary, Manon lies in bed covered with frustration and shame. Chevely arrives to see him. He questions Manon about his reckless actions, demanding to know why he acted so foolishly. Manon apologizes and claims responsibility, admitting fault. Chevely brushes it aside, saying it is fine, but his eyes grow colder. The scene fades into Chevel's memory of an earlier confrontation with Professor Hale. During their discussion, Chevely insisted that he had nothing to do with the chaos involving the Clads. Hale, unmoved, asked if that meant he had no objection to punishment being carried out on the clads, including Manon, according to the rules. When Chevely demanded to know what he wanted, the professor only smirked, hinting that his intentions were clear without saying more. Back in the present, Chevely speaks to his subordinates. He reveals that Professor Hale wants him present at the upcoming Eden field training. Suspicion creeps into his mind, unsure of the professor's true plans, yet his unease quickly transforms into arrogance. He smirks and claims that this will be a perfect chance to prove himself and demonstrate his power to anyone daring to defy his authority. Manon, however, cannot let it go. With bitterness, he mutters that Rude is no ordinary boy. He tries to warn Chevely, urging caution. Chevely responds sharply, standing tall and mocking him. He questions if Manon has lost his mind after being struck on the head, wondering how he could suggest being careful of a mere Eden student. With disdain, he dismisses the warning, telling Manon to rest and not concern himself with such useless thoughts. Before leaving, he promises that he will soon bring interesting news. That night, Rude lies in bed, reflecting on the day. He feels satisfied, thinking he has done well, and hoping that the small change he witnessed will help Lydersis move forward. Comfort settles in him, but only for a brief moment. Suddenly, black smoke seeps in through the window, forming into the shape of a dark figure at Lydersis' bedside. The boy sleeps soundly, unaware, as the shadow whispers chilling words, "Coming soon." Rude bolts upright at the sight, leaps from his bed and rushes forward, demanding to know who the intruder is. He tries seizing the figure, but the shadow dissipates into nothing before he can touch it. Rude wonders about the shadow that appeared near Lydersis and what it was trying to do to him. He realizes it feels like the same problem that surrounds Chevely. Thoughts about what has happened to that brat keep circling in his mind. The next morning, two girls walk down the corridor, whispering about the possibility of facing monsters in the field training. Behind them trail a half-sleepy Rude and Lydersis. When the girls turn, they freeze for a moment before greeting them politely. Lydersis quickly passes without a word, leaving Rude to stop and return the greeting. He then walks up to Lydersis, telling him that when someone greets, he must answer back. The memory of the previous night returns to Rude. That shadow figure had murmured the words "coming soon." A dangerous feeling runs through him, and he reflects on whether he should inform the school, but without any proof he decides against it. Varys suddenly comes running from behind, waving energetically and wishing them good morning. Rude once again urges Lydersis to greet properly, and with trembling lips, Lydersis forces out a greeting. Rude pats him on the shoulder like one would encourage a dog, saying "good job." Two students then appear and inform Rude that Professor Rowell is looking for him. Rude brushes it aside, saying they should tell her they never saw him. With that, the three continue on toward the classroom. Inside the class, Professor Hale makes an announcement. The clad students involved in the recent incident will be punished severely, and he warns the others not to repeat such mistakes. He then reminds everyone to focus on the upcoming field training, ending with a chilling remark that nobody knows what may happen in the future. During the break, Varys dozes at his desk, murmuring about how one should prepare for field training. Rude quietly wonders if they will be asked to fight monsters, but Varys mutters that such a task would be far too frightening. Rude reflects that the teachers will probably match the challenge to the students' strength. Suddenly, Professor Rowell appears behind Rude like a ghost and calls out his name. Both Varys and Lydersis are startled. She orders Rude to follow her, and he turns in confusion, asking what she wants. Elsewhere, the young princess enjoys a playful tea party with her butler, Rom. With a mischievous smile, she mentions that Tessie has found something interesting. Rom asks what it is, and the princess happily adds that Tessie is heading to the Eden field training. Rom is shocked for a moment, and then the princess casually announces that she too will be going. The butler could not believe it. Back at the school, several students gather curiously. One of them explains that Professor Rowell is about to spar with a student from Eden, Rude Chrissy. In the center, Rude stands with a wooden stick, while Professor Rowell faces him, prepared to spar. Varys rushes forward, pleading that Rude has done nothing wrong and should not be forced into this match. Rowell dismisses him, and Varys quickly hides behind Lydersis, whispering wishes that Rude will be fine. Rude keeps a straight face and reflects that he knew something like this would happen, though he did not expect the professor to be so stubborn. He believes this could be his chance to show everyone he is only an ordinary student, hoping to make them lose interest in him. Rowell, however, draws a real sword, takes her stance, and signals the start. Panic runs through Rude as he realizes the unfairness of facing steel with wood. Rowell tells him to rely on magic and insists it will cause no problems, then charges at him without hesitation. Rude considers letting himself be injured but quickly realizes her strikes are far too sharp and might cause more than a simple wound. He urges her to talk instead, yet she continues her relentless attacks and he keeps dodging. Students watching are stunned by how easily he avoids every blow. Rowell demands that he fight seriously and strikes with power. Rude reflexively blocks with his wooden sword, muttering in frustration as it breaks under the force. The crowd of students gasps at the sight. At that moment, Lydersis steps in front of Rude, forcing Rowell to halt. She warns him to move aside, saying it is dangerous, but Varys insists that the danger came only because they interrupted too late. Rowell presses Rude to go again and use magic so his weapon will not break, but he rejects her request. When asked why, he firmly replies that it is against his will. Varys adds that Rude is ill, but Rowell points out that he had been moving just fine. Students around them whisper in amazement, astonished to see a professor so unsettled. They discuss how Rude blocked her attacks and praise his ability as outstanding. Rowell tries to hand him her own sword, urging him to use it, but he refuses once again. Just then, Lispin steps forward, telling her that no one should be forced into something against their will. He expresses his wish to learn from her instead, but she rejects him immediately, leaving him turning away in sadness. Rude wonders where he has seen Lispin before. Rowell, growing frustrated, declares there are too many distractions and promises the match will continue another time before turning away. The students remain frozen, speechless from what they just witnessed. Ren soon arrives, saying she came because of the loud noise and asking if everyone is all right. Varys quickly explains that Professor Rowell nearly killed Rude, though he managed to remain unharmed. In the quiet that follows, Rude remembers clearly. Both Lispin and Rowell had been present at the auction. Ren looks at Rude with concern and asks Varys if he is really all right. Varys gets the impression she may have feelings for him, but Ren quickly explains she was only worried. She murmurs that she should introduce herself properly, yet to her surprise, Rude speaks her name first. He calls her Ren Noah and asks if she received Ben's letters. Blushing, Ren admits she recognized he was the one who delivered them and adds that Ben mentioned his name in those letters. Rude responds with calm certainty, and Ren thanks him again. Varys stands frozen, shocked, before asking if they already know each other. At that moment, Ren's friend arrives running and questions why everyone has gathered. Varys quickly explains that trouble came because Professor Rowell suddenly called Rude to spar with her. Rude then turns to Lydersis, saying he survived thanks to him. Varys immediately declares that if Lydersis had not blocked the strike, the outcome would have been very different. Rude teases that Varys had been hiding behind him, but Varys stammers that he was only a single step away and would have blocked it too. Lydersis quietly smiles at this, and everyone is startled to see him smile for the first time. Later, the teachers gather for a meeting. The head of the school asks if contact has been made with the tower. A teacher confirms and says there are no major changes. Names of selected students are read: Chevle, Anna, Linus, and Cyndia. The head questions why only 4, and Professor Hale explains that because it is outside the regular class period, many of the Harrier students are absent. The head then asks why Chevle was included. Instead of that teacher, Professor Hale answers directly, explaining that the Eden training this time is on another scale. For the first time, such a large number of students will be teleported and trained in coordination with the tower. Since unexpected problems may occur, he specially chose the most suitable Harris students. The head remarks that she hopes it was the right decision, then asks about the teleporter. Hale smirks with confidence, calling it perfect. The head ends by saying she hopes this training will improve their relationship with the tower and urges all professors to do their best. That night, Rude sits on the school roof with his communication crystal, wondering why his master has not replied. He decides to return to his room, reflecting that the dark shadow may appear again but feeling relieved that Lydersis is slowly beginning to open up. When he enters, he is startled to see Lydersis sitting stiffly on a chair like a lifeless figure. Rude explains he went out for fresh air and suggests that Lydersis should try the same. Lydersis admits he thought Rude had left and then moves to his bed. A little later, as they lie in their beds, Rude asks if the training is again in groups of 4 like last year, then would Lydersis join his team. He adds that Varys would naturally be the 3rd, leaving them to wonder about the 4th. Lydersis asks about Varys, and Rude agrees, while Lydersis jokes about him not caring for grades and smiles faintly. Together, they wonder who will be chosen as the last member. Elsewhere, Lispin approaches Lady Daner, who stands at her window with a distant look. When he asks what troubles her, she quietly admits that she has a bad feeling about the coming events. Meanwhile, in the manor of Ruby, he receives a report from her spy, but it contains nothing useful, only 5 lines of empty information. At Helios, Rude reflects that for the past few days he has not been able to contact his master. A troubling thought passes through him that something may have happened at Ophion. Varys suddenly runs toward Rude and Lydersis, full of excitement, declaring he is ready for training. Rude notices his enthusiasm and learns that the venue this time is none other than the tower itself. Rude glances at Lydersis and thinks to himself that the Black Shadow has not appeared again since that night. He wonders what connection Lidursus has with it, resolving that once he returns from the tower, he must uncover the truth. Ailey approaches them and explains that training will not be done in groups this time. She regrets not being able to recruit Rude into her team. A sudden change in Lidursus's expression reveals something ahead. The Hire students, selected to accompany them in training, arrive. Varys is visibly shocked at the sight. Ailey confirms aloud that the rumor about the Harris joining them was indeed true. Rude reassures Lidursus that there is nothing to fear because the professors are also present and nothing bad will happen. Deep inside, however, he thinks that this is his chance to deal with Chevle von Hadelio. Professor Khan addresses the Harris, saying they must follow the professor's orders. The sharp tone makes it clear his words are aimed at Chevle. The little princess arrives in a robe, cheerfully announcing to Professor Rowell that she has tied Rom up in her room. Varys suddenly notices Rowell's eyes fixed on Rude and calls out a warning. By then, Rude has already started running away. Ren turns to Lidursus and wonders why he is fleeing, but soon she sees Rowell chasing him. She laughs, understanding immediately, and grabs Lidursus's hand, urging him to come along. Inside the teleportation room, Professor Hale watches over the gathering of students. His assistant reports that all the members of his class and the Herace are present, with the rest of the Edens and professors on their way. Hale adjusts his glasses and smirks, declaring that the preparations are complete and it is time to begin. At that moment, black smoke rises and a shadowy figure envelops the staff member. Inside the teleportation room, Varys, Lidursus, Ren, and the other students stand amazed by the glowing golden mana stone and the beautiful teleportation circles surrounding it. Varys admits he has never seen a stone like that. The group soon notices that Rude is missing. Near the circles, Lapis examines the designs carefully, recalling everything he knows about teleportation magic. Rude approaches him, and the two begin talking. Lapis observes that Rude seems surprisingly knowledgeable in this field. As Rude studies the engravings more closely, unease settles in, and he senses something wrong with the circles. The little princess suddenly grabs his shirt, teasing that she caught him staring at Professor Rowell, who stands nearby with an intense look that makes it seem as though she could devour him. Varys and the others finally notice Rude and wave to him. At that moment, a shadow descends toward the teleportation circles and wraps itself around the glowing mana stone. The figure slowly takes shape in the center of the room. Rude recognizes it instantly, saying it is the same one he witnessed before. All the students stare in horror as the shadow lifts its finger. A violent windstorm erupts, joined by black water surging across the chamber. The students struggle to hold their ground. Rude curses the shamelessness of the shadow, appearing openly inside Helios in front of everyone. His eyes move to Lidursus, who is frozen in terror, and he steps forward, urging his friends to stay close to him. Professor Hale suddenly laughs, removes his glasses, and declares that his own desires align with the shadows, which is why he has chosen to join forces. The 4 circles carved into the floor explode with black whirlwind pillars as Hale announces his wish for the door to open. Professor Khan shouts for evacuation, but a wave of black water slams into the entrance, sealing it. She quickly channels her mana, shielding several students as her power awakens in full. Rude realizes in shock that the formula of the circles has been altered. In the chaos, he sees Khan rushing toward Rowell, calling for her help since she is not skilled in direct combat. Rude then sees the shadow moving toward Lidursus, and he mutters his name under his breath. Rowell awakens her full power and transforms into the cold ice beauty. She slashes the shadow with her blade, splitting its form into 2, ice shards scattering in the air. Varys briefly believes she may have defeated it, but Rude quickly warns otherwise. The shadow remains unharmed, showing that her strike was meaningless. Khan calls out that physical attacks do not work on the creature since it can shift its form freely, making it impossible to cut or hold. Rowell herself questions from where such a being emerged. Among the students, Linus relaxes casually, saying the professors will take care of the threat. His behavior irritates Chevle, who begins yelling at him. Linus shrugs and insists there is nothing to fear, but before long, black water surges forward, splashing Chevle to the ground. The waves spread, striking more students, leaving some groaning with irritation while others collapse. Anna awakens and raises a protective shield. Chevle drags himself up and notices Rude examining the strange black water in his hand. With unease, he mutters how creepy it looks. Varys shouts in alarm that Rude should not touch such things, but Rude keeps his focus, observing that the liquid is flowing directly from the teleportation circle. He reflects on a chilling thought. There is only one place where black water exists, and it must be connected to the circle. At the front, Khan calls to Rowell, insisting they must break open the door first. She reasons that the anomaly has likely already been noticed outside, and if they act before the others, help may reach them. Before she can finish, black water crashes against her face, knocking her down. From the ground, she continues to shout instructions through her pain. Raoul orders the little princess to stay close to Rude, then focuses on the circle. Rude, meanwhile, thinks through the problem. Even if the entrance is opened, not all students could escape in time, and the teleportation circle may activate before that. He concludes that stopping the circle must be the priority. Raoul declares the only way is to destroy the magic stone, which will halt its activation. Khan warns in return that destroying an active stone could trigger an explosion, but Raoul ignores the risk and strikes. The stone freezes, shatters, and breaks apart. Relief washes through the students, but their relief fades instantly as a black whirlpool rises, dragging both professors into its depths. The students cry out in fear. Chevalier curses that he cannot understand what is happening and argues that they should act instead of standing frozen. Anna adds her own fears, saying the whole place may soon turn into an ocean. Her prediction proves true as the water surges further, sweeping away Chevalier and the rest of the Harry's students. Rude observes calmly that those consumed by the water are being teleported. He tells his friends they must hold on to each other tightly so they will not be separated. Lydersis reaches for his hand, but before he can grasp it, Rude is swallowed by the current. With his hand outstretched, Lydersis watches helplessly, horrified as Rude vanishes before his eyes. Soon the rest of the students are pulled away until only Lydersis remains. The shadow materializes behind him, whispering cruelly that it is all his fault, reminding him again that he brings only misfortune. The words mix with painful memories, and Lydersis begins to blame himself for everything. In this state of despair, the current finally claims him as well. Elsewhere, Rude awakens as Blow, and his power breaks through the teleportation spell itself, shattering the pull that binds him. Rude realizes that he has misjudged the situation. He believes he should have ended everything right from the start. As he appears behind the shadow and launches an attack, the shadow pulls back, now standing at a distance, and locks its eyes on him. The tension builds as Rude presses forward. He prepares himself, charging at the figure in front of him. Their clash erupts into chaos. In the confusion, the shadow vanishes, leaving Rude standing alone in the aftermath. The silence is short-lived as the shadow reappears before him. Rude seizes the chance, sneaking up from behind, ready to deliver another strike. His eyes burn with rage as he finally lands a blow. He takes a deep breath and recognizes what he is facing. This shadow, just a lump of mana, cannot be the true body. Rude pushes for answers, demanding to know who controls the shadow, why people were moved, and what purpose lies behind these actions. He questions the target, Lydersis, and hints at a greater presence hidden behind the shadow itself. But the figure recoils in terror, refusing to reveal anything. It calls Rude strange, even questioning his humanity. Annoyed, Rude brushes off these words. Suddenly, the shadow vanishes entirely, leaving him in shock. A sudden light floods the area, and the sealed door bursts open. A group rushes inside, declaring that it is finally open. One of them looks around in astonishment, asking if everyone is safe. Another is immediately struck with confusion. The space is empty, and he wonders where everyone has gone. The other panics and shouts from behind, desperately calling out for the Princess Utiarian. Meanwhile, far away in a forest, Lapis slowly awakens. He lies on the ground, his head pounding. As he gathers himself, shock spreads across his face. He realizes he has no idea where he is. Panic takes over as he scrambles to his feet, calling out for Raoul and Utiarian. Confusion fills his thoughts as he remembers the black water crashing down, along with the professor. Just then, he stiffens and notices a pair of terrifying red eyes emerge from the darkness of the forest. At the same time, another scene unfolds at a forest waterfall. Rude surfaces from the dark waters, drenched and frustrated. He acknowledges that he was swept away before learning anything useful. He mutters at the troublesome turn of events, but his attention shifts as he examines his surroundings. The cursed land of flowing black water stretches before him, Ishuela, a place he had suspected all along. Just as he takes this in, he turns to find himself surrounded. Behind him, countless monsters emerge from the darkness, their presence looming and dreadful. He admits that he did not expect this. Lapis is running at full speed while a monster chases after him. His thoughts are full of panic. He believes he is trapped in a strange place after being warped here by the teleportation circle. Surrounded by monsters, he feels powerless. Tears run down his face as he thinks this might be the end of his life. In despair, he wishes Rune were here to save him. In a sudden flashback, he remembers speaking with his father about meeting Ophion's black mage. Before the memory ends, he collapses to the ground. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself lying in bed. At first, he feels annoyed, wondering what is happening. Standing beside him is Rune, who explains that she realized during the auction that Lapis cannot manage without her. She prepared for such a moment. Together with Ran, she engraved a special spell on the left side of his chest. This spell can protect him 3 times if he ever faces a life-threatening emergency. Lapis opens his shirt and sees the black heart mark engraved near his collarbone. Shock runs through him as he realizes she engraved such a spell onto his body. He thinks it looks terrible, but the memory gives him hope. Back in the present, Lapis keeps running but starts to believe in Rune's plan. He convinces himself that with this spell, he might be able to stand against the monster. He stops, turns toward the monsters, and prepares himself to face it. Trusting Rune, he tells himself to bring it on. But as the monster lunges forward, it strikes him down. Meanwhile, Linus and Cynthia are in near area, fighting monsters of their own. Linus praises Cynthia for defeating another monster and counts that this is already the 3rd one. They keep moving, but exhaustion begins to weigh on them. Linus mentions that her mana is running low and they have not seen anyone else since arriving here. As they move further, Cynthia suddenly finds Lapis lying unconscious on the ground. Shock washes over both girls. Linus mourns him for a moment, believing he has died, calling him the best among the Edens. Tears fall from Cynthia's eyes. But to their surprise, Lapis raises his hand weakly, showing he is still alive. He stands up, confused, and asks what happened to them and where the others are. Linus explains that when she regained consciousness, only she and Cynthia were there. The teleportation circle scattered them apart, and they decided the best option was to regroup with the others. Unfortunately, monsters appeared along the way and slowed them down. Lapis asks if they have any idea where they are. Linus admits she does not, but is certain this is not the magic tower. Lapis agrees with her. Linus studies the surroundings and says that one place comes to her mind. Lapis thinks of the same place but hesitates, pointing out that if it truly is that place, monsters should not exist here at all. While they discuss, Cynthia notices something strange in the distance and walks away to check. Lane calls out to her, but soon the 3 of them approach and become stunned by what they see. Dozens of monsters lie slain, their bodies scattered across the ground. Lapis stares in shock at the devastation and wonders how many creatures have been killed. Linus begins to panic. She insists that only one person could have wiped out so many monsters so cleanly, and that person must be their professor. Her voice fills with certainty as she declares the professor was here. She urges the others to move quickly and follow the trail. Lapis calls out in response, mentioning Linus. His concern grows as the realization sinks in that their professor may indeed be nearby. At the same time, far away, Rude sits alone, holding a strange glowing stone in his hands. His face is tense as he studies it. He realizes something about it is not normal and begs for his master to respond. The stone begins to glow brighter, and soon Keelnode's voice echoes through it. Rude recognizes his master's voice. Keelnode's first reaction is confusion. He hears a noise and questions if Rude has awakened. He worries and demands to know if someone has been bullying him. Rude, filled with relief, cries out, explaining that he has been unable to contact him for days. Rude grows curious, sensing something is wrong. Keelnode hesitates to reveal the truth. Before he can explain, Ren silences him, whispering not to tell Rude anything because it would tense him. Still, Keelnode begins to reveal that there is indeed a small problem. Rude asks about the problem, but Keelnode brushes it off, trying to redirect his attention to a much bigger issue. The discussion quickly shifts toward a mysterious place called Ishuela, a land known for its cursed reputation. When Keelnode brings it up, Rude admits that he believes he is there right now. His words shock the master, who cannot understand how a student who was perfectly fine at school suddenly ended up in such a dangerous place. Rude recalls what happened during their practical training. The plan had been simple. They were supposed to use the professor's teleportation circle to travel to the tower. But then, something went wrong. A pitch-black figure with glowing blue eyes appeared out of nowhere. From what Rude witnessed, it looked like a puppet created out of mana. Whatever that figure did disrupted the teleportation circle. In an instant, black water erupted and swept everyone away, scattering them across unknown areas. That is how Rude ended up in Ishuela. Keelnode is furious and overwhelmed. He cannot believe the professors allowed this to happen. Ren also bursts out in frustration, shouting about how much trust had been placed in the famous school, only for Rude to end up in even greater danger. Keelnode tries to calm her, explaining that this situation is far more complicated than Ren realizes. He urgently demands to know what the current situation in Ishuela looks like. Rude explains that the students who were teleported appear to have been scattered, and for now, he is completely alone. The real problem is not only the monsters he encounters, but also the fact that the person who caused all of this seems to be targeting Lydersis and plotting something dangerous. Linus is stunned to hear that monsters exist in Ishwela. That should not be possible. He explains the truth about the cursed land. Ishwela is not actually home to monsters. The stories about black trees, a red bleeding sky, and grotesque landscapes are only half the truth. In reality, Ishwela is an abandoned land that the tower quarantined long ago. The red sky is the result of the tower's barrier. Nothing is supposed to enter or leave without high-level magic, which makes the presence of monsters impossible. If Rude is encountering creatures there, then something about this place has changed drastically. Meanwhile, the situation worsens because the scattered students are also at risk. Rude fully agrees. The students' survival becomes the most pressing concern. Elsewhere, the students gather together in confusion. Fear spreads among them as they try to understand what just happened. Some wonder aloud where they are. Others ask if anyone has a communication device, and many look around in panic for their professors. One girl admits she is scared. Just then, Eckel and Neuden rush to Isle, trying to comfort her. They beg her to stay with them, promising protection. But in her mind, Isle is unimpressed. She knows they are useless in real danger. Out loud, she insists that she is fine. Her attention shifts toward a professor sitting at a distance. She realizes that he looks far less fine than any of the students. She analyzes the situation and thinks carefully. The forest around them looks ordinary at first glance, but there is something wrong about it. She reasons that if all of them were teleported here, then the students who are not present must have been transported somewhere else entirely. As panic spreads, Eckel wonders aloud if they should just keep standing there or actually do something. Julia nervously interrupts, insisting that maybe they should wait. She hopes the professors will eventually come for them. Neuden agrees, pointing out that moving around carelessly without knowing their location could be even more dangerous. Iel reluctantly admits that they have a point. The school will not simply abandon its students. Someone will surely come for them. But she also knows that until then, their survival depends on how cautious they are. They do not know who sent them here or what intentions lie behind it. Until the truth is revealed, they cannot afford to let their guard down. At the same time, in another place, the shadow figure speaks with Hale. He reports that 2 professors accompanied the students, one of them being Lowell, who might pose some difficulty. The shadow dismisses his concerns, stating that he will handle them personally. After the shadow vanishes, Hale concludes that it is time for their own group to make their move as well. Back in the forest, Rude finds himself facing a group of monsters. He engages them without hesitation, cutting them down quickly. As he fights, he reflects on the larger issue. A teleportation of this scale could not have happened without careful planning. He realizes that someone inside Helios must be an accomplice. For a massive creature made of mana to appear within the school grounds is impossible without help from within. He finishes the battle in a single devastating blow and lands back on the ground, certain that an internal investigation will be necessary. Rude then reminds himself of the bigger task ahead. He needs to find and protect Lydersis as well as the other students scattered in this cursed land. Keelnode, on the other end of their communication, agrees and promises to do everything possible from his side. He urges Rude not to push himself too hard. Rude remains on guard, scanning the area for more monsters. His instincts tell him that the danger has not ended. When he turns around, his eyes widen. Standing there in shock are Lapis and several others, staring at him after witnessing his overwhelming power. Rude turns his face in awkwardness and grows confused. He wonders if the strange phenomenon is because of the Bamer. He tries to calm his thoughts, and on the other hand, Keelnode notices the stone, frustrated that it was just fixed and is now broken again. Meanwhile, Lapis begins observing Rude carefully. He strongly suspects that Rude is the Black Mage. The look in Rude's eyes convinces him further. Lapis prepares to call him out, but Linus suddenly activates her power, Belita Restrain, and launches an attack toward Rude. Rude quickly fights back and manages to block her attack. However, he feels confused about the situation. Though he avoids taking damage, he knows that his identity is gradually being revealed. Linus confirms Lapis's suspicion, declaring that Rude is truly the Black Mage. Far away, Chevelle becomes annoyed at his own misfortune. He wonders why he has to be stuck in such a place and forced to deal with a brat at the same time. Varys, on the other hand, is terrified and prays for Rude to save him. Suddenly, Varys notices Professor Hale standing before him. Hale is shocked but also relieved to see the students alive. Chevelle and Varys rush toward him, concerned about his condition. Hale reassures them that he is fine, but admits he has no idea what is happening. He explains that he had gone to check the teleportation circle one last time when a man in a black robe suddenly attacked him. Everything happened too fast. By the time he regained consciousness, he had already been transported here. Hale immediately grows worried about the other students and wonders where they are. Chevelle explains that it appears the man who attacked Hale and the man who appeared before them are one and the same. He believes that everyone present near the teleportation circle was transported to this strange place. He points out that even this blue-haired brat ended up here with him. Hale realizes how dangerous the situation is and insists they need to hurry and find the other students. Chevelle then asks where exactly they are. Hale tells him that they are in a place called Ishwela. Elsewhere, Princess Utiarian asks Raoul about Ishwela. Raoul confirms that it is indeed the cursed land. Damien reacts in shock, reminding Raoul that Ishwela is not supposed to contain any monsters. Raoul agrees, but Damien quickly wonders if this sudden danger is related to the mysterious man who sent them here. Raoul notices the princess and orders Damien to protect her no matter what. Damien acknowledges the order. At that moment, the ground begins to shake violently, and a giant monster suddenly emerges before them. Back with Rude, he finally reveals to Lupin and the others that he is on a classified mission in Ishwela. Linus reacts with excitement, calling him the Black Mage. Lupin then asks if Rude remembers him. Rude feels disturbed by their behavior and wonders what is wrong with them. He questions why students are even here in the first place, since they should understand how serious this situation is. Linus explains that she came all this way just to meet him, but Lupin interrupts and explains the situation more clearly. He recalls that while they were preparing for class, a black figure suddenly appeared. Black water gushed out of the teleportation circle they had set up. That water swept them away and brought them here. They had originally planned to teleport to the magic tower, but instead, they were transported to this unknown and dangerous place. Rude explains to them that they are currently in Ishwela. Lupin panics because, to his knowledge, Ishwela should not have any monsters. Rude agrees, but notes that he has started piecing the situation together. He decides that as a mage, he cannot just stand by and do nothing. He makes the choice to interfere naturally and announces that he will help them. Lupin reacts in shock, but also relief. Linus steps forward to formally introduce herself. Lupin and Cynthia also introduce themselves in turn. Rude grows confused, wondering why they suddenly feel the need to introduce themselves in the middle of such danger. He introduces himself as a mage affiliated with Ophion under the name Blow. Immediately, Lupin and others grow excited and ask if they can call him Mr. Blow. Rude reluctantly agrees, and the group continues moving. As they walk, Rude notices Linus's ring and points out that it contains a magic stone. He warns her that monsters are roaming around even if this is Ishwela, and because they don't know what else could happen, she needs to take things more seriously. He asks if her stone has enough mana. Linus quickly agrees and insists that she is listening, but Rude notices she is distracted. Lupin apologizes on her behalf, explaining that she is not usually like this. Rude demands to see the magic stone, asking her to hand over the ring. Linus gives him her hand, but he clarifies that he only wants the ring. After examining it, he asks Cynthia for her stone as well. Rude informs them that he has fully recharged the stones, so they can use them for a while. However, he warns them to be ready to dodge because something big is coming their way.
And that is it for today. If you enjoyed this recap, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Until next time.